And we're live, and I'm with me. Sorry about that. With me, I have Patsy. Do you want to introduce yourself, Patty?
Yeah,
For your channel and what things you talk about, and
yeah, sure. Hi guys, my name is Patty. I'm Black Repub Probs on Twitter. I also have a YouTube channel that goes like funny YouTube videos that conservatism that they're a little snarky or I'm dancing to like rap music, but there's always like a point to it, and it kind of goes back to politics. So yeah, I'm glad to be here with you guys.
all right. And I'm also joined by Nick Carroll, and it's good to have you again, Nick.
Not a problem. I'm another little YouTuber, basically, in the last couple of years, been posting or making videos on some political topics. I'm pretty much somewhat of a libertarian Republican. I sort of fall within that space, and I've just been sort of covering this election as it's been going on, and just odd topics I tend to throw out every few days on my channel. So that's basically it.
And we're talking about the recent debates with Hillary Clinton. It was really amusing, especially the beginning parts where Donald Trump he was on the ball. Like he actually told Hillary Clinton like I brought all the rape victims, and I think Hillary Clinton was doing some like nervous smiling because like it seems like whenever he got her really well, she starts smiling whenever he got her. So then she was doing nervous smiling.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it was pretty cool. You could tell every time he had a good line, she would just have that Cheshire cat sort of smile, and it became a tell. Everyone could tell whenever he hit her with something, she would just grin like this crazy grin, and it was funny at first, but after a while, it's like, man, this was pretty crazy. Like I thought he prosecuted her pretty well. It was obvious in that first debate that he was holding back. He wasn't being snarky. He wasn't getting any lines out that would, please the crowd or please like his constituents or anything like that. But in this last debate, it was like, he's like, I'm just going to do whatever. And he did. And I think that's what made him win the debate.
Yeah. That's what tell. Now we know that whenever you catch Hillary Clinton in a lie, she smiles whenever you catch her in a lie.
Yeah, I was going to say it was interesting to me because, like you guys said, he obviously brought up a lot, right, about the women who've been, really like raped and assaulted and abused over the years by Bill, but then also you had a Hillary that was, who degraded these women as well. And she actually didn't deny any of those things. Like to me, I just found that so interesting. She kind of had this haughty like look on her face where, like you said, she was nervous and kind of smiling, but also kind of like looking down on him. But I was like, she didn't actually refute anything. So
Yeah.
for me, if I was like an undecided person, like even if I hated Donald Trump, that would have had a huge reaction on me. Like you say
Yeah.
those things about my husband,
Yeah.
I don't even come back. It's like I
Yeah.
thought that was terrible for her.
Yeah, that is one of the things that's obvious about the Clintons. See, so I'm in my mid 40s, and I've been following politics off and on since the 80s. I'm not saying I'm an expert or anything. I'm just saying I've seen a lot over the years. And so the thing that's consistent with like the Clintons, both Bill and Hillary, is they practically never ever apologize for anything. If they ever apologize, it's like a reluctant apology, and it's never directly for what they should be apologizing for. It's always tangential, or they're backpedaling or whatever, but they practically never apologize anyways. But the few times they do or come even remotely close to that, that's what they do. So they never admit fault. They never back down. They're always basically doing that. And so that was one of the things that she has to smile, because she literally can't do anything else.
Yeah, because she was like really nervous. That's what you know. What she says that Donald Trump never apologized after he got through apologizing. It's kind of like he was apologizing either earlier that day or earlier in the week, and
Yeah.
then he was apologizing in in the debates, like in the debates, and after he got through apologizing, Hillary Clinton goes, he never apologizes.
Yeah.
He just did. He just apologized, and you're saying he doesn't ever apologize.
He'll say stuff like, you know, it was embarrassing, I shouldn't have said it, all, et cetera, et cetera. But she never says anything like that. She never uses language like that. And what's coming out in these Podesta emails is essentially, I can't remember the line, but it's basically other people around her are basically admitting she can't apologize. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, those emails, it was really interesting because you just see all these people, whether it's like Jen Palmieri, like constantly trying to prop her up. It's like just reading it, it's like, oh, we want her to make a joke about like Benghazi. I mean, that was one of the things that I was just like, geez, you know, like I know she's not exactly an upstanding citizen, but you want to make a joke about 4 American deaths. And through every email, it's like, oh, but she's not humorous or she's not comfortable and she doesn't want to go back on it. And it's just like, it's like you almost feel like she's not a real person. It's like I feel like a robot and they're trying to decide what input to put in. So that was one of the interesting things that I kind of took away from that WikiLeaks, from the emails. It's like, you know.
Yeah, that's one of the things about her. She's extremely consistent. That's how she's handled all these debates. She's very moderate in tone. She's the epitome of being, you know, politically correct. She's extremely neutral language that's almost, it's like it's uninspiring. It's a lack of inspiration. There's nothing aspirational about it. It's as mundane as you can get with speeches. And so she's basically ruled by committee. So it's obvious in these emails that everyone is basically deciding, well, what are we going to have her say? And how are we going to have these scripts done? And let's go ahead and get these friendly stories out. And let's go ahead and, you know, like they're planning interviews with people and the you know, questions are being shared. And so there's absolutely nothing spontaneous, nothing original or innovative about what she's doing. It's literally politics by committee, a politician by committee.
One of the things that struck me as very, very interesting, it is also relates to the first debates. I remember in the first debates how Donald Trump went on and on and on about how he has a good temperament. He's like, well, you know what? He just run it up out of nowhere. You know what? You know, the difference between me and Hillary Clinton, I have a great temperament. And, you know, like me, I was like bursted out, started laughing.
Yeah.
And in this debate, Hillary Clinton is kind of like, I am glad that, you know, no permits of Donald Trump, and then Donald Trump had the best one-liner ever that everybody keeps using, because you'd be in jail.
Yeah, and that's true. She would be in jail, but she's protected by the media. She's protected by a lot of people in the establishment, a lot of people that are in the media, you know, and in government. So it's practically impossible for them to. I mean, Bill barely got impeached. You know, it took literally an act of Congress. So.
Yeah, I think that she was just trying to get Donald Trump. That's why she brought up temperament, because that's the one everybody was slapping at the prior debates. And I think she was just trying to get him and tried to be clever and witty, when really it's just backfired on her, you know, because I mean, I believe that's when he got a round of applause, if I remember.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was funny. I know, like, you know, as conservatives or just as observers of these debates, you know, whether it was Raddatz, whether it was Cooper, you know, like you just said, a huge applause line. When people clapped for Hillary, they were not admonished by the moderators. But anytime Trump had a big line, whether it was applause, whether it was laughter, there was this huge thing like, oh, okay, like, you know, we said not to have reactions from the crowd, etc.
Yeah.
And they did that all night. They kept fact-checking Donald. And, you know, throughout the debates, a lot of times they quote-unquote fact-checked him. The facts weren't even correct, you know? Like when they were talking about the stop and frisk policy, they were incorrect about that. And it's unfortunate because Trump tried to push back, but, you know, as the moderators, they presented a fact that was not a fact, and then they moved on. So I thought that bias was really clear in the last debate. So
well, yeah, too often they're fact checking. The facts they're checking aren't so much facts as much as a value of judgment. Like, you know, they're making an argument like the issue about Saudi Arabia, or what was it, Syria, and I can't remember the exact exchange, but it was basically Trump was saying, I can't think of any reason to do that, and Raddatz was basically saying, no, you would. Here's the reason why you do that. And he's like, no, I can't think of a reason to do that. So we're having this exchange. So it's not a fact like, you know, Aleppo's in Syria or something like that. It's, you know, what can you do to fix Aleppo? And then, of course, there's going to be a solution presented by the moderator, but why is a moderator presenting a solution to a problem? That's what these two candidates for. This whole fact-checking business, as you can see with Lester Holt and Candy Crowley in 2012, it's always one-directional. There's almost never any rebuttal and fact-checking on the left, and almost all these moderators are leftists. So yeah, it's a big problem with these debates.
But one of the, oh, go ahead and finish. You can finish.
No, I'm done. I was finishing. I was done. Go for it.
One of the things that I noticed in the first debate and in the second debates is like Hillary Clinton keeps saying, you know, you can go to my website and we're fact checking Donald Trump. We're fact checking Donald Trump in my website, and it's kind of like, who trusts your website? Everybody.
Yeah.
Your website is going to be heavily biased in your favor.
Yeah, and
like, never trust your website, except people who already were planning on voting for you anyway.
Yeah, I think one of the most pathetic things I saw was maybe it wasn't on Hillary's website, but I'm sure this is the kind of things she had on there. Hillary didn't actually have her email server wiped down with actual bleach and acid. It was an app called something
BleachBit.
Yeah, and I'm just
BleachBit. Yeah.
Really, like that's just like you just said, Ren. That's just an example. It's like obviously her issue is that she was deleting the emails, right, and that the server was wiped down. And you want to sit there and go, she didn't put a bottle of Clorox bleach, so that wasn't true. So yeah, it was ridiculous.
It's also like in the first debate, he said, "Oh yeah, you've been fighting ISIS your whole life." You know, they immediately turned that into, "Oh, he means that as like a literal fact that you can check." That's not the point. That's the way Donald speaks. He speaks in these sort of grand overarching terms and uses exaggeration and all these sort of methods of persuasive speech. And you know, that's why his language is very simple as well, because he's designed his language essentially to reach out to the lowest common denominator possible. And so when he makes these sort of statements, they're not all meant to be 100% accurate all the time. They're embellishments or exaggerations. They're whatever, just for effect. And what these people end up doing is, you know, they look at Acid Watch and they say, "Oh, well, that's false." You know, it's like, that's not the point. That's not how he communicates.
End up making a fool out of themselves, you know, because many people in the anti-feminist community were laughing at the Clinton camp. Like even people who weren't voting, like Vernaculus and Seanhead, who weren't even planning on voting, like everybody was like, seriously, you're taking that literally? Everybody knows that he didn't mean literally Clorox bleach, you know, and just literally, you know, harsh chemical. Everybody knew it was an embellishment and an over exaggeration. And to me, by taking a clear embellishment seriously, you know, it made them look ridiculous in the end.
I'm sorry, go for it.
Oh yeah, Sean had compared it to Onision responding to all of Blair White's shows. It's like, well, have an IQ of 6. It's impossible for a person's IQ to be that low. And it's like, seriously.
Yeah, that's basically straw manning. This is something that I see a lot. Like I think the other day, I responded to one of Ren's like threads, like in Twitter or something like that, and I could tell like immediately the person I was chatting with was just straw manning left and right and creating all these things. And this is a diversionary tactic that's often very successful, because what happens is your opponent essentially gets you responding to a wild claim, something you never meant, either said, or it's not intent that you had when you were making a statement. They basically butcher context and get you on the defensive doing that. And that's essentially what all these left-wing, quote-unquote, fact-checking sites do, is they basically take, they'll even take factually accurate statements and then sort of like beat around the bush in terms of debunking it. And so they'll say, well, it's half true, or you know, it's mildly false, because, you know, they sort of, it's really weird. So when someone like Hillary Clinton says, hey, go to my site for a fact check, or all these people say, go to PolitiFact, you know, for fact checking, it's almost always one directional, and and they essentially strawman the fact they're essentially checking in the first place. So,
Well, what I find fascinating is like even when there's audio of something, they will not believe their own ears. I was arguing with somebody, I didn't even remember where, but they were saying, oh, that's not true about Clinton, laughing about getting off, when she was a lawyer. There was a rapist who raped a 12-year-old. He was a 41-year-old man, and there
yeah,
is audio of her talking about it, and she is laughing at the audio. So the person goes, well, no, I went to Snopes or wherever they went, and Snopes said it wasn't true. And I was like, have you listened to the audio for yourself? Well, I don't need to do that. It's not true. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like there's actual audio and it doesn't matter because there's a website that says and then that's it.
Yeah. So here's how that.
The
Here's how that.
exact same thing happened to me. The exact same thing happened to me. And Nick, you saw it, didn't you? Like where a person was like, Snoops.com says that there is no audio of Hillary Clinton laughing about,
Yeah.
the 12-year-old. You saw it, right? Didn't you? Like where it's kind of like,
Yeah.
it's like, what? And I went to YouTube. It was really easy to find because it was the very number one results when I searched the exact text. And it's like you can find, but yeah, they're like, well, Snoops says this, which is like, I wonder why so many people brag about Snoops. Like even when I go to outside of Twitter, I would go to different forums. It's like, well, Snoops says that Donald Trump is lying about this. People really trust Snoops when, to me, given that I heard the audio myself, it makes me think this. I've never been to Snoops, but it makes me think it's a extremely left-wing website.
Yeah, well, you see, that's how it works. So there are a lot of sites out there that start out basically neutral, or they'll basically lampoon both sides. They don't really care. They'll just lampoon anyone they can get. And what happens is you get essentially this sort of leftist takeover occur. Like somethingawful.com was a site, for example. It was just a neutral comedy site. It was just trolling anyone. It was just making a bunch of crazy, memes and little like. It's pretend characters like Jeff K making fun of people and just all sorts of weird, crazy stuff. And even I got lampooned by them once. I sent an email saying, hey, can you take this picture of my family down? I love your comedy. Definitely keep up the good work. I just wanted to have you do that. And they're like, yeah, sure. We'll go ahead and do that. And it was actually Low Tax himself. So I thought that was really cool. But what I've seen in the last few years is, and it's actually started, I think, in the late 2008, 2009. But a lot of leftists essentially took over somethingawful.com, and it essentially just became a social justice warrior type of site, and they would just lampoon only people on the right, and they were responsible to some extent, or some of the people on there doxed others. It got really bad. It's no longer a neutral site. Well, that happens in other sites. Reddit sort of got taken over by the left and purging a bunch of memes or quote unquote offensive, like Reddit and stuff like that. But that's essentially what they do. They take over a medium. The progressives take over journalistic outlets. They take over the gaming industry. Like progressive outlets like Polygon and Kotaku and Gawker and other sort of media outlets. That's what they do. They take these things over, push out right-wing people. Vice magazine was that way. Gavin McInnes was one of the co-founders of it. And he got pushed out, by a bunch of leftists, and Vice kind of went downhill that way. So that's literally what they do. And so that happens to Snopes. That happens, like PolitiFact. They're just left-wing sites, and the only people that defend them are leftists that want to essentially believe it.
Yeah. Another thing that bothers me, something that I've noticed when I'm watching Saturday Night Live, even Saturday Night's Live, Saturday Night Live, it would have been better if they went after Hillary as they went after Trump. But I noticed that they went even it went after Trump far more than they went after Hillary. They barely touched Hillary, and they just heavily focused on Trump.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm sorry, Nick. Jimmy Fallon. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember when he had Trump on, and it was this huge thing where he messed up his hair, and people were just like apoplectic. And I remember I try to stay off of Facebook, my personal one, but I was going through the newsfeed, and people were he humanized him. And I just responded and I said, how do you humanize a human being? Like, seriously, nobody has a problem with Obama when he gets on and does all this stuff. And I'm like, it was just a funny moment. Everybody doesn't have to be political. Like, they want him, I guess, to be, I don't know if it was Johnny Carson. Like, they mentioned somebody else, I guess, who used to do like late night stuff who was political and maybe wouldn't have had Trump on the show. But it's like, Fallon doesn't have to be that way. He wants to have both candidates on and make jokes with both of them, and that's okay. But people were really enraged about it.
Yeah, so this is sort of a continuation.
Yeah.
This is a continuation on a theme I was mentioning earlier. So Johnny Carson's show, Jay Leno for the longest time, and other shows of that ilk, not ilk, but of that type, you know, from the early 90s to the 80s and the 70s and earlier, they were all pretty apolitical. They would, you know, treat the left and right equally, and they wouldn't necessarily, they're basically equal opportunity offenders. But in the 90s, that started changing, and now all the late night hosts, every single one of them are all leftists, so they can't have they can't treat people on the right the same way they do on the left, and that's why literally all of them, they're all left wing. There's no right wing late night talk show, and it shouldn't be that way. They should all be equal opportunity hosts, and they're not, and they actually get punished if they try to be equal opportunity.
Yeah. I remember what you're talking about, how Jimmy Fallon got hell for humanizing Donald Trump when Donald Trump is a human. And the problem is, in America, like 29% of Americans are Democrats, and like 26 of Americans are Republicans. So it's not exactly even, but it's close to even. And it's kind of a lot like they're shitting with the other, like, you know, percentage, you know, that are Republicans. And I do think it could backfire. You know, it's backfiring. People are at each other's throats, and people are giving each other hell over politics, and I think it's worse now than it was. I mean, at least for as long as I've been alive. I'm 27 years old, and it's the worst that I've ever seen it, to be honest. I mean, I don't know what you've seen in Nick, but
Yeah, that's sort of been my life experience. So, like, I've always been a big supporter of Gamergate, for example, because as a conservative, I've seen liberal media bias for decades at this point. It's no surprise to me that someone on the left would call someone on the right a racist, a sexist, a misogynist, homophobe, Islamophobe, xenophobe, bigot, and all the other things that I'm probably forgetting. And so I'm used to it. But to see essentially the left attack their own, calling all these gamers, you know, all the ists in the world, it's like, okay, now these people get to see what we've been through, and they don't like it. So that's cool. So I support these people in basically fighting against these basically progressives. But yeah, this is no surprise seeing the media essentially cover Hillary Clinton, the Democrats, pretty much any left-wing politician with one set of rules, and then, you know, Trump or say Ted Cruz or Rand Paul or any libertarian with another set of gloves, or the Republican Party or the Libertarian Party. You know, it's two different worlds, and it's been like this for decades, and it's only getting worse. And that's why media is basically so untrusted at this point. I think media is actually less trusted than Congress and just the government in general, which is something. So
yeah, sure. The people trust politicians more than they trust the media, and people trust Trump more than they trust the media. Like 95% of people trust Donald Trump more than they trust the media. Like, you know, and that's weird because stuff's like Paul. It's like, you know, it's like Donald Trump is more well trusted than the media, and it's like, I don't know. I think we're going too far left. Like, we're going really, really far left, and I don't know. It's close to the Satanic Panic era. You know, that's what it makes me think of. It's kind of like where you could get fired or go to jail if people think you're not Christian. You know, you're a devil worshiper, or, you know, if you're not religious enough, you could just get fired over this and that. And
Yeah.
right now,
But
you get fired if you get called racist,
yeah,
sexist. Like it's like, and it's like, what about it being valid? What about some valid claims? It's like just a mere accusation
yeah,
of rape could
Mhm.
get you kicked out of this. And
yeah,
there are guys who've had their lives destroyed. They either got expelled from college or they had to transfer to a new college because of a false rape claim.
Yeah, but I've always thought like that's the only thing they can try to use against conservatives, like and Ren, I kind of know like how this goes, but like I've pretty much been called like every name in the book online. Like I've been threatened with violence. I'm not going to go into some of the things that are on my YouTube, and it's like for what, right? Because I'm conservative, I'm black and female, and I try to make funny videos. And most of the time, it's never on the actual content. It's never like something valid, right? It's always just like, you're an Uncle Tom, you're an Aunt Tina, you're, again, just things that I'm not going to even say on this thing we're discussing. But it's like, that's all they can really do is to try to insult and try to say, like, okay, well, you're not down with the black community then, and try to like ostracize you because they really just don't have those valid arguments. And like, of course, you see that with Trump too, whether people think he's kind of bombastic or not. A lot of the things he's saying are true. You know what I mean? There is a lot of crime amongst illegal immigrants and things like that. So you can like the way he gets it across, but it's not that he doesn't have a point, but they just have to keep throwing these labels against us because they don't have arguments that actually hold up against conservatism.
yeah, and crimes are going up in the inner city, and we've been noticing a spike in the last couple of years. And that information is starting to come out. We're seeing things like there's no how blacks are essentially a smaller percentage of the population than say whites, for example. But the ratio of cop shootings, cops shooting blacks versus compared to white, compared to the population isn't out of line, but like criminality is different among these groups. And if you mention stuff like that, if you mention that the rape hoaxes were actually hoaxes, like the UVA, rape hoax, the Duke lacrosse team, all those things. You talk about things like the 1 in 4 women are raped on campus myths or the pay gap myth, stuff like that. You could, there's a risk that you could actually lose your job for just stating facts, even if you back up your claims with evidence for that kind of information. That's dangerous, and it's getting to the point where it's hard to essentially be free, in terms of what we talk about. You can't even joke about some things.
Have you heard of the I believe it was a Catholic teacher who got fired from her job just because she said that there is only 2 genders?
Wow, I haven't heard that, but that's pretty bad. That's not surprising though in this climate. And that's how political correctness works. That's literally the design of political correctness, is to essentially castigate some types of speech for other types of speech. And there's a methodology in terms of how you apply the political correctness and to who is being benefited by using this tactic and stuff like that. But yeah, that's essentially what we're dealing with. And of course, us as conservatives, we've seen this for a long time. This is absolutely nothing new to us, but it's gotten so bad that there's a lot of people on the left now, people that would have ordinarily voted for Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, that are like, whoa, this is too crazy even for us. So that's why someone like Trump even comes out. So yeah.
Oh, you could go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, go for it. I was just going to say that that's why you have Trump, is you have essentially people fighting back, and they basically, the people on the left essentially ruined Romney's chance at his presidential bid. They ruined McCain's chance, in terms of like the types of attacks they leveled towards him. They essentially made these political figures neutered to where they could practically not defend themselves. Then you got Trump, who's like, I don't care, and so he just says whatever the heck, and he's Mr. Entertainer, and that's a natural consequence of essentially being silenced.
I do think that's even when it comes to Obama versus McCain, you can even kind of tell that the media favored Obama. Like I still remember that there's this person who phoned in CNN and the person said that they wanted to vote for McCain or whatnot, and the CNN host or whatever, he cuts her off. He hung up on her, and I still remember that to this very day. You can tell that there is a clear bias for the left. You know, like the media, it always labels the right as racist, and I still like remember that, like, you know, McCain racist, you know, and I had no idea that the accusations of Obama being a, I had no idea that that came from Hillary's camp,
Yeah.
or you know that it started off with Hillary,
Yeah.
and you know the Republicans just went with it. I honestly thought it was a Republican thing, but I mean, either way, it's stupid. Like it was stupid for Hillary, and it was
Yeah.
stupid for
Trump. Yeah.
McCain, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's like knew if I knew this, I would have never voted for. And you know, it's like, well, I'm not voting for her now, but it's kind of like Nick, you've been on my show multiple times, and it really is like I taken the red pill, because it's kind of a lot like I am now, my eyes are being opened to what the Democratic Party is really like with all of this WikiLeaks, all of this corruption. I mean, it is far too corrupt. I mean, reading like WikiLeaks and what's it, Podesta emails? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Podesta?
Podesta. Yeah. Podesta. He's been the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton, and he's been a long time ally and advocate for Hillary and the Clintons, like for a long time. I couldn't tell you when he started. Yeah. So that's one of the tactics the Democrats had in 2008. They had targeted John McCain, also with claims about birtherism, because he was born on a military base outside of the U.S. You know, disregard that one or more of his parents was actually an American citizen. You know, because that's actually the law of the land. You know, these people, they build this sort of myth that, oh, if you're not born actually in the country, you're just magically not a citizen, and that's not how our naturalization law works. And so they targeted McCain for that. They targeted Obama. You know, even if technically he wasn't born like in Hawaii or wherever, he would still be a citizen because one of his parents is a citizen. So, you know, and they try to do the same thing with Ted Cruz. You know, one of his parents was an American citizen. That's enough to be an American citizen. So, anyways, those are the kind of challenges we've seen, and it all emanates from the left. And the instant it stops working, or they lose the ability to use that, you know, they sort of pretend like it never happened. So if someone on the right uses the same tactic because, hey, they read about it and they're going to continue to use it, it's now magically the right's fault, and it's all their fault. So
yeah, I mean, if the right uses the left's tactics, then the rights are terrible, horrible people. And it really, it has to do with the media. The media always favors the left. You know, it doesn't matter if the rights and the left change scripts. The media will still take the left side, no matter what the left does. It's kind of like, you know, Bill Clinton, he's raped women and he's did all of these terrible things, but they're not honing in on, you know, Hillary Clinton getting a pedophile off jail. They're not holding Bill Clinton to all the rapes he's done. They're focusing in on Donald Trump doing guys talk. And not only that, but what annoys me is supporters, like even outside of Twitter, even, you know, on websites that barely have a leg to stand on, I'll see Hillary's supporters going like, you know what, you know, Trump said terrible things and he said all of these terrible things. They're holding on to words. And it's like, when have words become more important than actions? You know, it's kind of like it's really tough
Well, yeah,
that words is more important than actions. And I begin to wonder if the Democratic Party was always like this, and I never really paid attention to it because when I think back on it, it's kind of like the N word, it's kind of like how the left wing media was be like, oh, you can't say the N word, you really can't say it when Black people have other problems to worry about over a word. Get people worked up over a word, and when you talk about the word, it's kind of like you get applauded, and the Black community loves them, even though nothing changes. Black on Black crime is still very high.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Black people, we're like 12% of the US population,
Yeah.
and we kill each other higher
Disproportionate.
ratio,
Yeah.
than white people. And yet, it's kind of like the media makes it feels like they've accomplished a goal by banning a word when I could care less if anybody uses it.
well, I think that's what they do, though, because a couple of other things. I mean, they try to say that Republicans are the party of racism. That's like one of their big things. And you look at some of the comments that Democrats have made. I know when Clinton lost the nomination to Obama, Bill said to Hillary, "Well, don't worry about it, because a couple of years ago he would have been carrying our bags." Like you had Senator Reid say, I'm pretty sure it was him. I don't think it was Biden, but he said about Obama, like, finally we have a clean and articulate sounding Negro. And it's like, obviously, just imagine if any Republican was to utter those statements. I mean, we'd still be talking about it now. And 2008 was
Yeah.
over 10 years ago.
Well, just remember Hillary Clinton and was it Pataki? I can't remember who it was. They're talking about not Pataki. It was the communist that's in New York, the real tall guy, whatever his name is. Anyways, but they're joking about colored people time, and basically almost not a word from any Democrats. And Joe Biden was talking about, I think it was Mitt Romney, about the Republicans putting y'all back in chains.
Yes.
All this stuff is like, if we said anything like that, like a political career would be completely ruined. And for Joe Biden, it's like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Democrats, they could get away with saying anything. And I do think I've been reading Rules for Radicals, and one of the interesting things that I was reading is that it says that humor is a weapon. And it makes me think this is probably why Milo Yiannopoulos is so well hated by the left, and while the left, tries to ban him. I mean, it did ban her, and it's kind of like why the young church is like, he who shall not be named, don't even mention Milo here. It's kind of like, I do think that the reason why Milo Yiannopoulos is viewed as such a threat is because he is funny, he's hilarious, he's really likable. It's hard not to like somebody like Milo. And it's kind of like and a person did post was kind of like years ago. Christians were the stuffy ones that were kind of like that didn't allow anybody to have any fun, and the left was the most like, relax. Now it's reversed, and feminism has taken over, and feminism isn't allowing anybody to have fun. And the rights wingers and the Christians are like, relax. And Rules for Radicals, humor is the best we have. Makes me think that's the reason why everybody views like Milo Yiannopoulos as such a huge threat and tries to silence him and get rid of him, because somebody like Milo could really destroy everything that they've been building.
Well, I think that's true. My cousin goes to Rutgers University, and he was invited to speak. And I don't know if you guys heard about it. I mean, this happened in New Jersey. And before he even arrived, people were so upset about him coming. So given no chance to even listen to him, they vandalized the Student Center on College Avenue, and that's the main campus at Rutgers University. And I mean, they were really like destroying property, putting like graffiti on the walls and everything like that. And they said it was because they were traumatized that he was coming to the campus. So not only were they not punished, because that's obviously breaking the law, right? You're vandalizing property. They were given counselors who actually came in and gave them free counseling because they claimed they were so traumatized just by his presence on campus. And, my cousin was like, okay, Patty, that's going too far, but I understand why they didn't want him here. And I'm like, wow, this is like how the left wins,
Yeah.
And I was like, why do you hate him? I asked my cousin that. She's a very intelligent person. And she's like, oh, just the things he says about feminism. That's not right. He shouldn't have come. And I'm like, but everybody should be able to come to campus. This is supposed to be, where all the ideas are open and debated. Like, this is the time of your life where your mind is supposed to be opening. We all know that's not happening on US campuses, but it's so much worse even since I graduated in 2007. I mean, that would have never happened when I graduated Rutgers in '07. And people didn't even have a problem with them vandalizing property. So, like you said, they have to shut him down that way because if anybody actually listened to him, they might have been charmed by his humor. Like you were saying, he's a likable guy. He's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing that's interesting is Milo actually used their tactics against him, like the humor, personal attacks, and stuff like that. He actually uses that against them. He makes fun of them. He doesn't punch up. He punches down. He basically is taking all the things that they do wrong and essentially lampooning it. And that's just criticism and humor, and that's the same thing that the left has been doing to the right for decades. Look at Bill Maher and Jon Stewart and all these other late night, talk show hosts. Even David Letterman, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, all these, Jimmy Fallon to a lesser extent, but all these people do the exact same thing to the right, and they love it up. They lap it up. They can't stop laughing, and these people have to do that or else. And whoever that unfunny guy, Trevor Noah or whatever on Comedy Central, same thing for people like him. It's always valid to attack someone on the right. It's never valid to attack someone on the left. And they just don't like that, and that's why they are okay with silencing people on the right, even someone that's not technically on the right but is more to the right than some of these leftists, like Christina Hoff Sommers. She can't, go to some place on campus. When she does, she has to be escorted, or else she'll be attacked by these crazy leftists. And somehow the right is the violent side. Yeah, right.
Yeah, because things have changed over the years. Because like again, like the meme showed, like the rights used to be stiff and stuffy, and the rights and the left was the one who used humor and like, oh come on, you gotta relax and have fun. And now things have went reverse, and now the left is being really stuffed and stiff and no humor allowed, and the right is like, oh come on, like they're the ones making all the jokes all over Twitter, when really I don't think the left is going to last for very long, for a few reasons. Like one of the reasons would be ideology of Islam is not compatible at all with the ideology of feminism. It just doesn't blend in, and it's kind of like if feminists keep defending Islam and they keep blowing buildings up, eventually it's kind of like I saw a map of Europe, and the states of terrorists. Europe and most of the countries are in the red, like Germany in the red, France in the red, England in the red, Spain in the red. This means that terrorism is far too out of control in their countries. And when it comes to Germany, it probably can't save itself, even if it tried, because so many migrants keep flowing into Germany and just blowing the buildings up. And feminists was like, nope, 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 we're not going to do anything. And if you do keep doing anything, you're a racist, and it could lead to Germany turning into an Islamic state, and they may actually lose their country to Islam. And if that happens, I mean, it would be a wake to Americans. You know, it's like if Germany goes from being what we've known it to be while growing up to turning into an Islamic country. I do think it would shock many Americans into, you know, turning away from the left. And another thing that's hurting feminism is that they're starting to turn on each other. You know, like Makia B, who's a feminist, was talking about the sex wars. Positive feminists are arguing with the sex negative feminists, and then there's the feminists who are against trans people, and then there's the feminists that are for trans people, and then it's kind of like, you know, you just have all of these feminists fighting amongst themselves. You know, it's kind of like even Sargon brought up the Facebook group, I believe it was. This called Country Living. And when feminists get together to talk in country living, they just do nothing but tear each other apart, which again reminds me of how Christianity was. I mean, because again, I grew up in the deep South, and being a Southerner, you have the Baptists against the Methodists, and nobody likes the Catholics, and it's kind of like there's this hostility there, and it's kind of like with feminists, you just have them all. You have these different people, very different. That's positive, these that's negative. You got all these different types for trans, anti-trans, all on the umbrella of feminism. These people, of course, they're very different, and then they're fighting because they're different, and they just keep saying that feminism represents the interest of all women. They're not thinking that we are all very different from each other, and you know, it to just think that, you know, you're identical because you're all women. Of course we're different. We're individuals after
Yeah.
all. This is why individualism needs to win. We need to move away from collectivism and move to individualism. But because the rhetoric has always been feminism speaks in the interest of women, which you hear with Steve Shives, like
Yeah.
Steve Shives, they conflate feminism with women, and if you hate feminism, you hate women. It's just what really hurts them in the end, because now, I mean, what's left is infighting, where they just end up tearing each other apart.
Well, I think that's kind of like, it's interesting how the left is. It's kind of a bunch of these interest groups that the politicians on the left try to keep happy. But I mean, if you even think back to Keystone Pipeline, you had the environmentalists who were completely against it. And my sister works for the Canadian government, and the type of protesters that would show up, I mean, just absolutely crazy. But then you have the people that were working, you know, the union guys who were totally for it, because I think it was going to create like whatever it was, like 80 to 100,000 jobs. So, you know, they kind of have these groups sometimes that are at odds with each other, and they try to keep everybody under this one umbrella. Like you were talking about, even with the feminists, like a lot of them will say, hey, if it's an all women's college, we can't let a trans person in, quote unquote, they're not a real woman. And then it's so funny because if a conservative said that about a trans person, try saying that about Bruce Jenner.
Yeah,
like,
no kidding.
see what's going to happen to you. You're going to get slapped across your face possibly. But the feminists can say it. You know, it's just so interesting. So yeah, it's kind of like all these special interest groups that kind of end up at each other's throats, like you were talking about. And it's this like barely held together coalition.
Yeah, so there's three elements at play here. So like you were talking about individualism versus collectivism and things like that. You know, all women are the same, all men are the same, all transsexuals are the same, all gay people are the same, all straight people are the same, all black people are the same, all white people, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's basically classism. That's part of this whole philosophy that the progressives essentially lead with. They have classism, that's one thing. They have something called conflict theory, which is basically pitting all these classes together. And they also have something that's tangential but related called critical theory, where it's essentially just literally tearing things apart until there's nothing left and continuing to tear things apart, you know. And so all these things essentially lead to something called class warfare. And so something I'm actually planning on making a video on this at some point, is talking on this issue. But conservatives need to stop using terms like the political class or the wealthy class or anything involving the word class, because that's exactly how these leftists think through their collectivist ideology. Is everyone is broken down by all the possible variables that are out there and then essentially pitted against each other. And so, like, I know socialists that are like, yeah, I really hate these progressives because they're, you know, dealing with all this class warfare. But oh, the rich class, you know, now that's real class, you know. And it's like, no, you're not going far enough. You don't quite get it. You know, some guy that's a millionaire that, you know, gives to charity, employs a lot of people, you know, does a lot of good. You know, that's one person. Another person could be a millionaire. You know, he pays for a bunch of hookers. He, you know, has bums fight out on the street. He's completely stingy. He cheats on his taxes, does all this crazy stuff. Both those people are rich, but one is clearly a better person than the other, you know, whatever. So I'm just saying that this whole class warfare, even based on things like wealth and whatever, even skin color or gender and all that kind of stuff, is pointless. And we need to avoid being sucked into that.
Yeah, you know, another thing that bothers me is how the Republicans, they always apologize even wrong. They always, you know, like if you were to say, okay, if the media were to say, John McCain, you said something racist, John McCain would probably apologize and say how sorry he is. And,
yeah.
Like, you know, it's kind of like they apologize over things that they're not guilty of. And when you apologize, when you're not even guilty, you're accepting that you're in the wrong. And one of the greatest things about Trump is that he's not going to apologize if he didn't do anything wrong. Didn't do anything wrong, so not apologizing.
Yeah.
You know, even Sargon of Akkad, he mentioned this in his channel. You're not wrong. Don't apologize to these people. You shouldn't apologize to these people. And this is what annoyed me. I think it was Jeb Bush. I'm not sure. But one of these guys, they turned on Trump. Like the Trump tapes came out. And it's kind of, I think it was Jeb Bush who's like, not to accept it. You are a horrible human being, and I will never forgive you for this. And it's kind of like, you know, with Republicans, you need to have a united front. You can't be tearing each other apart. You got to get behind Trump, because it's kind of a lot like by tearing each other apart, you know, it's really, it really only helps the left. And, you know, I do think eventually, when it comes to left, I do think it's going to turn into a purity contest. You know, like who on the left is more pert than whom, you know, because these college kids, they're crazy. I mean, we see how crazy they are on YouTube, and they're going to be hard to employ because everything hurts their feelings. They can't accept disagreements. You know, when they out in the real world and they're working, they're going to be really, really difficult to deal with in the workforce. They're going to be impossible.
Yeah, I think that's all part of like the program that's been going on. Like, to me, for the past like 50 to 60 years, like the general just dumbing down of the populace, but through education and through the schooling systems. Like, you know, my dad tells me, like, you know, I learned, when he grew up and he's 68, he learned so much about how American government actually works, and the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Founding Fathers, and you know, how a constitutional republic differs from a democracy. And it's like, you know, I'm 34, but even when I was, you know, coming up, it's like, you know, the level of detail my father tells me about was not there when I was in school. And obviously now for the people coming up, it's a lot more dumbed down. But, you know, to what you just said, I think they want these kids to kind of be wrapped up in a plastic bubble and not be able to handle things. It makes them easier to control, you know? Like, you can't handle differing opinions. You can't seemingly even defend yourself in a debate. That's why they're always shutting things down, and that's why they never want conservatives on campus. So I think this is all part of like the larger design of the left, and unfortunately I feel like it's working.
Yeah, so there's a kind of a long history behind the whole thing. Basically, how do I explain this? So this progressive ideology that all these people are following is essentially a relic of the past. And these people don't really get that this progressivism that they're doing, this progressive movement is regressive. You know, a lot of the people on the left are catching on that, hey, this is regressive, but they don't, at least the near as I can tell, they don't fully understand why it's regressive. So a lot of these leftist policies basically came from a line of thought decades and decades and decades ago. This whole cultural Marxism that they talk about, you know, and the problem is that this progressivism hasn't really advanced. And it's, you know, they made a good decision in deciding not to just focus on economics. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you're oppressed. And they realized that. So they started going into the whole idea about the culture and sociological, basically everything else that's not directly economics is what they focus on, which is fine. But the whole reason why you would institute this type of ideology is to tear down a culture, to tear down a country, to essentially make it weak for like the Soviet Union or Marxists in another country to essentially take over. And the problem is there's no one left really worldwide that's promoting that to such an extent toward that. There's not like a USSR part 2 that can take advantage of us failing that way. So what a lot of these people are doing, they're basically living by a set of ethics and code to essentially tear down Western civilization, but there's nothing competing with Western civilization to take over Western civilization. So ultimately there's no reason for these quote unquote progressives to do what they're doing, because ultimately no one's going to benefit. If they bring down the United States of America, that affects everyone in the world. Everyone suffers because of that. And they don't understand it. They don't understand that what they're doing is ruinous, not just to this country, not just to millions or tens of millions of people here, but billions of people worldwide. And they don't understand it.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my rant on that. Sorry.
No. It's okay. It's okay. I was just trying to find a quote from Rules of Radicals, and yeah,
Okay.
but I can't find it.
I'll
Like,
go about it. So I wanted to mention something earlier. Like you had talked about how the left is so good at essentially gathering around each other, and the right spends a lot of time fighting with each other. That's true. The left is better at coalition politics than the right are. You know, I'm a conservative. I was never Trump for months, but you know, ultimately there's a Clinton on the other side. So for me, I really don't have a choice except to vote against her. And you know, in my opinion, the only candidate that could possibly do that is Trump. You know, with all of his flaws. So I think ultimately you're going to see a lot of people sort of step back from Trump, but in the booth they still may vote for him.
And I think that's one of the things on the right. I mean, obviously, like, we're kind of the party of like individualism, right? Kind of like that rugged individualism,
Yes, definitely.
self-reliance, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if we want to really compete with leftist ideology in this day and age, they've obviously taken over like the cultural narrative and they have the upper hand. We do kind of have to come together. And I had, like, a while ago, I had tried to do, I don't know if you guys ever go to meetup.org, but I tried to do like a in real life, like, conservative group where we were going to go to campuses and like pass out pamphlets and like go to New York City. And like, I had all these ideas, and like literally, I think like 2 people signed up for it, and like nobody came to any of the in-person stuff. So, you know, sometimes it's like, I get the individualism thing, but it almost hurts us because I know
Yeah.
there's so much more like together and just like, you know,
Teamwork.
yeah, they care about what other people think of them. I mean, that's so much of leftism, is you want to look cool to your friends and like who's more progressive than thou and like all that stuff. But yeah, I wish we could maybe on the right do a little bit more together, because we're going to need to do that if we want to defeat their ideology.
Yeah, what we need to do,
Yes.
in my opinion, is to focus on teamwork and, you know, voluntary cooperation, you know, to do that. And honestly, I'm just being a realist here. The left is so good at identity politics, and because we're so anti-identity politics, it's actually hurting us. In my opinion, I think more black people, more women, more black women on the Republican side need to have their faces out there and talking with people to let more people see that our party helps everyone, not just white rich people in, you know, in the suburbs, you know. And
But when black people, oh,
go for it.
go ahead.
No, go for it.
Um, when black people do vote Trump, and I'm pretty sure you've seen this on InfoWars, but black people would get attacked. Like black people would get punched or yelled at and screamed at, or even there's this video clip. It wasn't even about Trump. There's this black guy. He just gave a police officer a hug. I'm not sure if you've seen it already, but he gave two police officers a hug, and matter. They just attacked this guy. I mean, not physically, but they were like really mad. They were yelling at him and screaming at him just because he gave the cops a hug. And I do think it's, you know, I do think that the left is going to end up destroying itself because they are too powerful. They really are too powerful, but they're radical. I mean, when I say they're radical, they're a bit insane.
Well, you're right.
It's kind of like in Europe, you see all of these, you know, terrorist attacks. Europe is in the red right now. Like I looked at maps, I looked up, you know, terrorism in Europe and different maps, you know, like I tried looking at different websites, and it all essentially says the same thing, that Europe is in the red right now. That terrorism has gotten out of hand. There's too many attacks, and it, you know, again, it's kind of like it also, what bothers me about Hillary Clinton is that she accepted money from Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia, I believe they were sending weapons to ISIS. And not only that, but it's like Germany, it talks about open borders, and you know, the letter says that they have borders, and it's kind of like ISIS could really win. I mean, ISIS could basically destroy their country, and that may end up turning into a wake-up call for the United States. Because I also remember watching a video from Skeptor, and for a while Israel, for years Israel was on the left, and Israel was like, oh, let's love everybody, let's try to get along. And then it's kind of like they just got attacked to the point where it was survive. We just got to survive. We want to live. We don't want to die. So Israel ended up getting very much to the Republican side, or to the right side, because they want to live. They don't want to die, and they acknowledge that they cannot have peace with the Muslims. And with the left, and you see Black Lives Matter, you know, destroying all of these neighborhoods. I do believe, I'm not sure, but you know, I could be wrong, but I do believe that the moment that Black Lives Matter starts attacking white neighborhoods, I do believe that the media's rhetoric is going to suddenly change, and Black Lives Matter is going to suddenly be a problem as soon as they attack a white. And the reason why I believe that is because of something that Ben Shapiro said. Ben Shapiro was talking about life in the 1930s and how the Democrats, they always wanted to keep cops out of Black neighborhoods. The reason why the Democrats wanted to keep cops away from Black neighborhoods is to keep the Black neighborhoods unstable. And not only that, but because of Black on Black crime, they want Black people to go around killing themselves, and they didn't want, you know, the people doing the murdering and the killing to be put in jail, and you know, so that Black people could live normal lives. And now 2016 is similar to what the Democrats wanted in the 1930s, and that is to get cops out to Black neighborhoods. And according to Ben Shapiro, the you know, if a black person, the Democrats have nothing to say. You know, they have nothing to say about black people killing themselves. But as soon as a white person gets harmed, you know, like a white person in a white neighborhood gets harmed, suddenly there's a problem. And this is why what I mean by what's happening now. There is a black guy who shot, I believe, a reporter. Like he shot like, or was it four whites of his co-workers? So it's kind of like the moment this black guy shots four whites co-workers, the moment that's when the media had something to say. When really, you know, it's kind of like, where were they earlier? You know, like I know that there are people from the alt-rights and the whites nationalist side. They have video clips of black people in Black Lives Matter beating white people, trying to white people alive, and they say nothing but how peaceful they are. But when a black person, when that black man went to work and shot four of his white colleagues, they had something to say. It does make me think that if, you know, as long as the violence is contained in black neighborhoods, they have nothing to say. If you're a white person and you live in a black neighborhood, or if you're white and you hang around blacks all the time, they have nothing to say if you get attacked. But as soon as Black Lives Matter, if they attack, you know, a white neighborhood, I would think the media, the left-wing media, I would think that's they would turn on Black Lives Matter. I mean,
the media really only cares about violence against journalists that are white. They don't really care about if you're a white cop and you get killed by a black person. Those stories almost never get covered. If you're a white person and you get mugged or whatever, you know, by a black person or maybe a Hispanic or any sort of, you know, issue where you're punching upwards, essentially, where like the victims, you know, are an oppressed minority, and or like the victimizer is the oppressed minority and the victim is the oppressor. Anything along those lines is where the media just sort of looks the other way, and unfortunately that's not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, and what I've noticed is like I really do commend Trump for bringing this up. He's brought up a couple of times like the not African American, what I'm trying to say is basically inner cities, right, which a lot of them are overwhelmingly African American, minority,
or Hispanic,
or, you know, minority, Hispanic, whatever. But he's not wrong for saying that, right?
Exactly.
It's not 95% white, so they try to make a big deal about that. But his point is, they've been ruled by Democrats for decades. Nothing has changed. People don't talk about thousands of people being murdered in Chicago, like in less than a year, black on black crime, it's gang violence. You know, it's almost like people don't care. And his point is, you know, why keep voting for the same? Like, you are getting taken advantage of. And it's so funny, instead of people realizing he's telling the truth about that, you know, it's this pushback of, oh, what do you mean that most inner cities are overwhelmingly minority? When that's just a fact. Like, my husband's from Camden, which used to be, you know, the murder capital of the entire country. And I can tell you, like, I didn't really see a white person the whole time I dated him for 7 years before we got married. So it's just the typical thing where, like, you know, you can't even tell the truth, much less try to change things, because if the people in this community would realize that the Democrats don't care about them. You know, they're all Obama fanatics that I saw in Camden when I would meet people down there, like family and friends, and it's like, what have the Democrats ever done for you? Like, at some point, it's almost like, maybe vote for a Republican just once to see if something changes, you know? Like, what do you have to lose at this point?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I believe it was the Rebel Media with well, I don't know which it was, but they were interviewing black people and they were talking about how they could only vote Democrats, and how Republican isn't even an option for them, and how they live in really crappy shits neighborhoods, how everything is horrible for them. And they're like, the Democrats, they're just about rhetoric. They ain't doing anything. They're just all about rhetoric.
It's like that in Detroit and Chicago. Yeah, go on.
That's what Donald Trump is trying to say, and I agree with Donald Trump 100%. That's, you know, Democrats, they're all talk about what they're going to do, and, you know, they don't ever do anything. And not only that, but when it comes to Black people and incarceration, Black people going to and the arrest rates, it skyrocketed during Bill Clinton's presidency. I should probably get a link to back up my claims. But people's incarceration rates skyrocketed the moment that when Bill Clinton was in the office. And if you give me a minute, I could find a link because I have it saved in my journal.
That's cool. No, while you're mentioning that, I'll just say that, like, when Trump goes to like Chicago or these sort of inner cities, his events get shut down. When he tries to speak to Black people, these idiot people, pundits, like what's that communist on CNN, the black guy?
Don Lemon, right?
Not Don Lemon. It's the other guy. The bald guy.
Van Jones.
Van Jones. Yeah, that's the guy. He talks about, oh, he's not talking to Black people, he's talking down to them, or whatever he talks about. I was like, look, dude, he's doing the best he can given the circumstances, and there are actually black for Trump movements out there. It's just that these inner cities, they're run by these Democrats, the Democrat machine, and they literally won't let him talk to them. And when he goes and has events outside those areas, like he had an event in Milwaukee but not near that area where the riot occurred, they were complaining that he wasn't talking to them, that it was all white people. Well, it's like he's doing what he can, but they're right. It's just to the south of there, so
Yeah, and it's just always what they do. Like, they're so afraid of our message actually getting out to Black people, kind of unfiltered, right? Like, it's filtered on TV, filtered in the media. I remember Rand Paul. Obviously, he dropped out, but I remember he went to the NAACP and actually spoke with them. He went to historically Black college and university, spoke with students there. I mean, just imagine how hostile that environment probably was for him as a Republican. But, he went out there and made that effort. And it's a lot of the times when you actually get people one-on-one, they might not admit it later, but a lot of it makes sense. I mean, you also have to think about the fact that a lot of Black people are Christians, right? A lot of them are Baptist. My parents are Baptist. They raised me as that. The religion doesn't really jive with a lot of things that liberalism is about today. It doesn't jive necessarily. I mean, it just doesn't. I won't say necessarily with gay marriage, with abortion. You look at abortion, it's I think Blacks are 13% of the U.S. population. Much more higher percentage of Black babies are being aborted. You look at Planned Parenthood putting the facilities in inner cities. It's what's really going on, And even the trans stuff, it's that's not biblical teaching. So it's if people one-on-one and be listen, I know the cultural cool things to vote Democrat, but just kind of methodically go through it. A lot of them will actually kind of have an open mind about it.
Yeah, one of the things I want to talk about here, and sort of touch on what we were talking about earlier, but their ideology is essentially built on destroying everything, destruction economics, broken window theory. If you break someone's window, you create a job, it's but you still broke someone's window and someone is now paying money for that. But that comes from the left. This whole class warfare and conflict theory that I mentioned earlier, they're pro-abortion, as we're talking about, which is happening in large part on the left by leftists, by people that vote Democrat, and they're unnaturally, or they're in large part affected by that. And that's why they have to fight through methods like voter fraud, have to use things like open borders to let these quote-unquote undocumented Democrats vote. They bus people around in areas where voter ID laws aren't in effect. So you can have a bunch of people vote in one area, then they go to another area and they vote again. Or even in areas where there are voter ID laws, they help them do these different things. So that's why they cheat. That's why they do these things. Because if only left-wingers are doing these things like aborting all their kids and, I'm not attacking gay people by saying this, but I'm saying gay people on their own do not reproduce. Men and women reproduce. And so a lot of the gay people tend to vote left. It's part of who they're trying to appeal to, because they try to focus on all these minority groups. Well, by default, they do not repopulate as well as the right. So they're always trying to take over and pull people from the right to the left. And that's what they call progress.
Yeah, I mean, I totally think that's true. And like you were saying, it's a very old ideology. I mean, I put up a graphic. I think this was back, I don't remember when it was, but here's the thing is, Hillary Clinton put this slogan called Forward, right? This is to the best of my recollection.
Yeah, no, I remember that going. Yeah,
Arrow. And it's like, I looked it up and it's like Stalin had a thing about Forward.
yeah,
Like Obama had something similar.
yeah,
Mao had something similar. Like you said, this is a very old ideology. It has been disproven time and time again, whether you want to look at Mao, Pol
yeah,
Pot, Lenin, Stalin. I don't care who you look at.
yeah. It doesn't work.
Yeah, hundreds of millions of people get killed. you
Yeah,
know, and you're the people who are like, oh, the right doesn't care and this and that. It's like you're the side that actually has hundreds of millions of corpses that are kind of like buried underground based off of your ideology because it's against human nature. All of the things they try to do, you
yeah,
know, whether it's wealth redistribution or whatever it is, it really goes against human nature and it never works. And the people at the top always want stuff for themselves. I mean, I don't know how many people I've talked to who don't know what Nazi stands for. They don't teach that. National Socialist Party.
yeah, yeah,
He was a socialist, and they always try to say on the right, like, "Oh, Trump is the new Hitler." And I'm sure you've heard in this election cycle, and it's like, well, it's funny to me because Hitler was actually a socialist.
yeah. Well, a lot of these socialists, they basically think the problem is nationalism. Oh, nationalism, that was a problem. You need to be internationalist. No, that's not how that worked.
Right.
The whole ideology difference, is between freedom and force. And socialism is essentially economic force, and they expand that to force within the culture. The government basically controls everything, and that's how dictators flourish. That's you give them all the power. Ironically, Marxism, is it's they're trying to defeat the bourgeoisie with the proletariat, but their ideology actually creates that. They actually create this very small but few wealthy class, the political class, by their own rules, and they actually rule everything, and they can never escape from that. So this whole pipe dream of socialism leading to communism, and magically the government goes away and everyone's just working, and it's just the people. That doesn't happen. The only way that would happen is if the government fails and collapses, and you get anarchy, and then you still end up getting someone taking over in the aftermath. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Bill Ayers, and we were talking about Obama in 2008 and McCain and everything, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's like they lied and whatever he said was ridiculous. Like, I was 8 years old when Bill Ayers set off the bomb. And it's like, okay, but Bill Ayers started off your political career in Chicago in the living room of his house. But of course, the media didn't report on that. But, there was a comment from him back in the day when he was doing his thing. We're going to need to kill 25 million capitalists that can't be re-educated. He said it very flatly with no affect, and he was 1,000% serious. And this is where their policies always go to because they can never have an opposing ideology, because it just doesn't hold up to scrutiny. It doesn't hold up to somebody fact checking them. So, yeah,
and
it's
William
just
Ayers hasn't changed. He's the same guy as he was back then. So,
yeah, the left, they just have too much power, and what it makes me think of is kind of like I remember when the rights had a lot of power. Many atheists pretended to be Christian to avoid getting fired from their jobs, because there's a time if you were to say I'm an atheist, you would get fired. Atheists would put on a show, and it's kind of like they just would state their feelings in like YouTube or a blog, or a gay person, they didn't want to come out as gay because being gay could get them fired, but they would go to these forums. It makes me think, are we going to end up living in a time where the rights is in the closets, and the rights is like, I'm a Democrat, and oh yeah, I believe in feminism, and it's kind of like where people play lip service, but then over the internet, it's like alt rights and hippie and things like that. Where it's like you have one face at work, and you have another face over the internet because you can't get fired.
Yeah, I think we're already like kind of there at this point. Like I don't do that personally. Like, even if stuff comes up at work and I have gotten a lot of flack for it, but I'm like, no, I'm voting for Trump. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're honestly asking me like what I'm gonna do, like I would never Trump. At first I wanted Cruz and whatever, but it's like, the fact is Cruz is no longer in it, and I don't want Hillary. And I just get these shocked looks of horror and dismay. But then I have people pull me aside later and be like, hey, Patty, I'm voting for Trump too. But it's like they don't want to say it in a group. They don't want to say it like around other people. But you have those people, like you said, it's almost like you're a closeted conservative at this point, because it's almost like I feel like what's hated more than conservatism right now? You can be a trans person, you can be gay, you can be this, you can be that, but it's like, God forbid, you're conservative or you're Republican. It's like, to me, it almost seems like that's the one unacceptable thing in society right now, where people, like I said, are like pretending they're not because they're afraid of the reactions from people.
Yeah, I believe that Blair White said that's in her channel before, where it's kind of like she could come out of the closet to say she's trans. She could tell people left and right that she's trans, and she would have no problem. But I forgot. I don't remember if Blair White is conservative or not, but she was talking about if a person were to come out as conservative or have any conservative views, the conservative views would get held.
Yeah, that's what happened with Bruce Jenner. I remember with the interview, I don't remember what journalist, but he's going through the whole thing about when he knew he was trans, and then he comes out and he says something like, "I don't like Obama." I think it was Diane Sawyer, and she said something like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, what's wrong with that? Like, I believe in the Constitution."
Yeah.
And like the reaction on Twitter was like, "Okay, nobody cares that he's trans, but you're a Republican," and it's kind of exactly what you just said. People had the biggest problem with that versus him being or her, I guess, whatever you want to say, being trans.
Yeah, I'll just say that for me, I was never Trump since about pretty much the beginning of that movement, since I found out that there was not really a movement, but just that hashtag. But, I was initially for Rand Paul, then he dropped out, and I was for Ted Cruz. Then, of course, he was out of the picture. So at that point, I was like, well, the Libertarian Party, they still have Austin Peterson. He's pretty close to me in terms of beliefs, so I was for him. And then the LP made the mistake of going with Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. So I was like, yeah, I'm just never Trump. And then I was watching that speech live when James Comey he gave that 12-minute scathing indictment of Hillary Clinton. And at the very end, the 2 minutes basically saying, oh, no one would actually prosecute her. And so that's it. And then mic drop, and then he leaves, doesn't take any questions. Like, what? So I was like, that is it. I'm just going to vote for Trump. I can't believe this woman just gets off scot-free yet again. So.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing with me. Like you've been following me on Twitter for a very long time, and I did hashtag Never Trump,
Yeah.
And I've done hashtag Never Trump for like weeks or months. I outright hated Trump so much. I also was for Ron Paul. I was really upset when Ron Paul dropped out, and it's kind of like I was like, never Trump, never Hillary, no. And it's kind of like, then it's kind of like, well, Ted Cruz, well, Marco Rubio, and then I just thought, but it's Trump and Hillary. I won't vote. I was in the, I won't vote. And that's what my thoughts were. And then WikiLeaks came out, and then that's when I saw WikiLeaks and saw that Hillary Clinton rigged the election against Bernie Sanders. That's when I made a YouTube video. I actually went to YouTube, and I was like, I was live. But I made a quick message. It was just a quick live message. In my mind, I am voting for Trump. When WikiLeaks came out, I became a Trump supporter, and I wasn't even going to vote at all. But that is what made me turn into a Trump supporter.
Yeah, it's similar with me. Like I was telling you guys, I was very much for Ted Cruz, and I was going to write his name in, which obviously it's like, okay, he's obviously not going to win, but I didn't want to not vote. I voted every election since I was 18.
Yeah, I was going to do the same thing, but go on. I'm sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. But I think like the closer I got to it, the more I was just kind of like, I'm not okay with Hillary at all. And people say one vote doesn't matter, this and this and that. But it's like, we've had some pretty close elections. And, for somebody who, in my opinion, was responsible for 4 American deaths and who's so corrupt with, the Clinton Foundation, I mean, whatever it is you want to look at, she just lies so much. And the big thing that changed my mind was the Supreme Court justices. I know some people maybe they don't care. But to me, I was like, things are already so far left for her to appoint 2 to 3 hard left justices, and they're on there for 20 to 30 years. Like, I just wouldn't have been okay with myself if I hadn't cast a vote. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to vote for Trump.
Yeah, those were pretty much the same reasons I basically switched to him too. Part of it was just incredulity. I'm sorry, I'm really tired. But that yet another Clinton got off yet again, and it's obvious that there's been collusion. And all you got to do is listen to testimony by different people, and you hear all these interviews, and all these people explain explicitly why all these problems exist. You know, what she's doing and how she's getting away with all this stuff, and it's like I can't help but not vote against that. So even though I'm not a fan of Trump, you know, I do like some of the things he does, but I don't like other things that he does and other things that he's done in the past. But we literally have no one left, and the GOP couldn't do anything to stop him. You know, tens of millions of people, or over 10 million people, voted for him in the primary. You know, he had more votes than anyone else, so they pretty much had to let him go through. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to WikiLeaks and all the leaks and Pascal leaks and whatnot, I mean, I am never voting Democrats ever again because they're too corrupt, they're too they're just knee deep in corruption. I mean, Hillary Clinton money from Saudi Arabia, and they are giving money and weapons to help fund ISIS, and ISIS is destroying Europe right now. They're actually hurting our allies, and our soldiers are going to war with ISIS, and they're losing their lives. It's like she should be arrested for treason charges, to be honest. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. She uses that language like giving comfort to the enemy or whatever. She uses that language, which is literally the language of treason for Trump. But she's the one that's literally been involved with a lot of our government actions that essentially help our enemy. You know, when we created that vacuum of power in the Middle East, you know, by leaving Iraq, well, basically ISIS walked up and took all the weapons we left the Iraqi people. So all of a sudden they became the most well-armed terrorist group ever in the world because of our actions. And then, of course, they control a region and they control the oil. So now they are the richest terror group ever. I mean, I suppose you can consider Saudi Arabia, but they're like clandestinely, you know, and same thing with Iran to some extent. But as far as the legitimate terror group, ISIS or ISIL or whatever you want to call it, Daesh or whatever, they are set up for life. And as long as we essentially do nothing and pretend that they're the JV and then pretend that there's no possible backlash that we're going to get from these people, we're going to continue to go down this road, and it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ren.
It's like, is money really that worth it? I mean, sure, it's not going to affect her because she is probably going to die within, you know, a few years, like 5-10 years, if not sooner. You know, so it probably won't affect her, you know, but it's kind of like, I mean, that's so treasonous. I mean, you know, I do think that a few years back, she would have gotten shot to death for treason. And it's kind of like, again, I mean, I hate to say this, but when it comes to Germany, I honestly believe that Germany is going to turn into an Islamic state because they're not fighting back. They're held back by feminism. I mean, the police arrest Germans under hate speech laws. Germans cannot even say anything against, you know, the Muslim tax. So the way I view it, you know, the government has literally turned its back on its people. So it's kind of like by the time they could do anything at all, it would be too late because you can't really imagine that a bunch of Muslims who wants a white female atheist leader. You can't really think that they're going to take a white female atheist leader. She, you know, Angela Merkel, you know, when they just killed enough people, the next people to go through would be the leaders. It's like they're not going to take her leadership. Next thing you know, it's like it would really be states. And it's kind of like, I mean, I really don't see how Germany could save itself because it's not fighting back. It's hurting its citizens instead. And it's kind of like I do think that once Germany is destroyed, it would be a wake up call to Americans because we still remember what Germany was like. It's currently happening in our lifetimes. We remember how Germany was like years back. So it's kind of like if we remember Germany being one way and it's turning to this other way, I do think that would probably be a shock to stop listening to the left because right now the left has too much power to the point that the only thing that could destroy the left is itself at this point.
Yeah, I would hope it would be. I just remember, when those, I guess they were called so-called rape parties, in Cologne, when literally like over 1,000 German women were assaulted by Muslims. I believe it was around New Year's in Germany, and I
Yeah,
think,
Cologne, Germany. Yeah.
yeah, Nick, you had mentioned how liberal Reddit is. People
Yeah.
were flagging on Reddit whenever anyone tried to talk about it, claiming it was Islamophobic. People were denying it, and it's like, there was video. There was video of these women, being followed, being attacked, being grabbed. I mean, things I'm not even going to get into. And it's like, it's right in front of people and they're denying it and they're still using the Islamophobia thing. So that's scary. And, I think the mayor of Cologne came out and said, well, you just have to dress a different way then. You just have to stop provoking them. And he's like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. This was 1,000 women who were assaulted. Like, obviously there's more going on there. So I would hope, I agree with you, Bryn, that I think Germany, like you said, they're not fighting back, and Angela Merkel wants to have more refugees come over. Like, they're not changing any of their policies. So I would hope that if, they really do go down like that, that it would wake us up over here. But at the same time, I don't know. It's like we need to close our borders. Trump talks about a wall, and again, racist, and
Yeah.
any terrorist at any point can walk across our border and attack us. I mean, if I was a terrorist, I'm sorry, that's what I would do because we know that the border is open. She wants to import, I think I read 500% more refugees. And it's like, we all know that we're not properly vetting them. It's not really possible to, right? So it's like, that's another way that terrorists can come in. So I would hope they'd be a wake up call. But then I also feel like I don't know if those policies would change here. And that leaves us very open to terrorist attacks.
Well, when it comes to the wall with Mexico, I would think that it's Mexico's support to pay for the wall. It's going to be with our tax money, and they could climb over the wall. They could dig a tunnel under the wall, and they could probably get boats like or a canoe because it's kind of like they could get here to California or Texas through a boat. So I don't know how effective the wall would be. And then there's maintenance, because it could be affected by perhaps an earthquake or a tornado. So you would perhaps need to frequently do maintenance. And then there's bombing the wall. Just make a homemade bomb and just bomb it, or there's obstructing the big where you attack the people building the wall.
I mean, I think there's always going to be ways around it, but I think that we have to do a lot more than what we're doing now. Like I think like if I have a gate in front of my house, like yes, somebody can still jump it, but if it's completely open, then anybody can come through.
Yeah.
So I think at the very least,
I was thinking of a solution, and when I was reading up like, well, why are they coming here in the first place? And it's kind of like they're trying to escape the problem country, and they would really like the U.S. assistance with with the Mexican drug war. So I was thinking that if we assisted them with their Mexican drug war, then they would probably be happier staying within their own country, and they wouldn't want to come here anymore. So I was thinking of helping them be satisfied staying where they're from.
Yeah, I'll just say that I'm living here down here in the South, and I'm pretty close to the border, and I can basically see that the direction things are going, and I would bet money that some of our metropolitan cities down here, like in Texas or maybe California or some other places, are probably going to be having problems soon with a high number of immigrants. Now, we're lucky here in Texas, we're somewhat of a red state. So like our governor, Greg Abbott, has sort of cut down on migrants coming to this state, for example. And at least in the last 10 years or so, we've actually paid some of our own money to erect some fences along the border, although it's nowhere near complete. So that only helps to some extent, because the United States, the contiguous United States, is pretty much borderless between all the states, and it's pretty much free roaming for everyone. So once you get across that border, these people can go anywhere in the states and ultimately do whatever. So sooner or later, we're going to see some negative consequences to these open border policies.
For me, I just think we should help them with their Mexican drug war, because I think that if they're satisfied and happy with their country, then they would no longer would want to come to our country. They would be happy to just stay there.
I think one thing I will say, and I'm just going to preface this by saying my mom's from Kenya, and she came here when she was 18 to go to school, lived here for decades, obviously had me, so had her kids and stuff, and she became a naturalized citizen, right? So she did it, quote unquote, the right way, right? Like, she didn't jump a line, she didn't come over legally, etc. Like, I do think there's a thing, though, like, America is the best country in the world, like, I truly believe that. I love this country, but it's also, put out there everywhere. How, Africa's pretty far away from here, but from the time she was young, she wanted to come over here to go to school. So I understand what you're saying about, assisting with the drug war. Obviously, there's horrific violence down there. I mean, if you look into that with the drug lords and the gang people and everything like that. But I still think, like, even if Mexico improves, it still wouldn't be on the U.S. level. So, there'd still be a problem. And, I know people feel differently about it. I just think there's things we can do. I mean, it's like, they do come over and they get benefits and stuff like that, and they go to the public schools and stuff. And it's like, that's a lot. It's a lot, I think, when they're obviously not paying taxes. So I think there's definitely different ways that we could go about it to kind of like tighten things up where it could definitely be improved from now. Because to me, I feel like it's just a welcome mat, basically, that's out there right now.
Yeah, I also think that if a person is here illegally or undocumented, like the love letter said, they're undocumented.
Yeah.
I would think that they shouldn't be allowed to work here. They shouldn't get a job. They shouldn't get any of our benefits. We should just, it's kind of no work, no benefits. And that was actually successful. If I remember correctly, I think it was early on in Obama's first term that when you crack it down and you take away all of the benefits, they're desensitized. It's like, I can't work anymore. I can't work here. And when they can't work, they go back to where they come from. When you take all, like, no medical benefits, it's kind of all like, sorry, you got to go, like, refuse to take them as a customer. It's like, it's kind of like, just refuse them, just tighten things up, especially closer to the border. The closer you are to the border, the more you got to be tighter, just to keep the benefits away from them.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention is, quote unquote, illegal aliens. That's still the legal term for economic migrants that essentially come in here illegally. So my whole argument is we need vetting still for everyone that comes in the country, green card, etc. Because, unlike 100 years ago, we have a welfare state now. And right now, the Western belief system that made us essentially the best nation in the world, and I agree with you so much on that, that whole view is essentially being marginalized. And now we're deep in debt, nearly $20 trillion in debt and counting. So it gets to a point where we just can't take on the world. And the rate at which, all these people are coming in is beyond our ability to cope. We can barely pay for our own people, and we're in such debt. So yeah, it's a big problem, not just with regard to terrorism and crime, but just with our inability to essentially pay for all these people.
You know, this may be extreme on my end, but I would like for flights to America and from, going to and from America, because right now, even Europe is in the red. The only safe country I could think of is Japan. Like right now, America is in the orange and Japan is in the yellow. So Japan is much safer than America. Japan is probably the one country that is much safer to live in than America.
Yeah, because they're very insular and they don't believe in all this, like, oh, let's have everybody come over here, et cetera, et cetera. Like they're very unapologetic about like, no, like we want to keep our, foreign population pretty low. Like I know people who've taught English in Japan and it's very, very difficult to stay there for more than just a few years. Like they usually, don't grant that to people who come over as foreigners. So like you're saying, it does make their safety level a lot better than ours.
Yeah, so the way I view it, we need to cancel no more flights to and from America. That's what I'd say, because, Africa is really dangerous. Europe is in the red now. It's kind of like, it's not really just worth it anymore. But that's my view.
Yeah, one of the things I'm gonna sort of skip to a different tangent here. I didn't, while I remember, I was gonna mention earlier. So, like Mitt Romney, he had sort of caved in. He was sort of an invertebrate, as I've heard someone mention this week. And that's always been a problem for us. McCain was pretty much railroaded. And one of the things I actually like about Trump, despite all of his flaws, that he's often willing to fight in a bombastic way and essentially not hold back, and Hillary Clinton, by her very nature, as we sort of discussed earlier, she's very reserved, very neutral, neutered language, very politically correct. And so if she keeps doing that, and if Trump fights better and comes off better, that'll help. But I think in large part what we need to do is work on continuing to discredit the media and show all their hypocrisy. Why do they cover sex scandals on the right differently from the left? Why is it they care about porn only when someone on the right it even comes close to porn, but they on the left, have this porn culture, pretty much any sort of anything goes essentially, unless you're on the right. And if you're right and you get caught doing anything like that, then it's a problem.
Yeah, because it's like Trump is right. What he says is pretty much guy talk. I mean, girls talk dirty too. I mean, come on. I mean, I've been in dorm rooms, and when I was staying in a dorm, girls were saying the things that was said in a dorm room I was staying in was far, far, far worse than anything Trump had ever said. Things like even when I was in high school, in high school, girls were saying like much dirtier things that Trump ever said. But it's kind of like when Trump says it's the good bad, and it's kind of like it's all of these people, it's people on Twitter and people on all of these blog sites, man, and it's almost like they do it with no self-awareness. Now, come now. You never talked that way before. You never done it. You don't listen to musicians who do so that way. You don't listen to Beyonce. You don't listen to rap, because
Kanye or anything like that.
Yeah, you could hear it in the music. There, it's like that. Even when you turn on TV.
What's that crazy white girl that used to be like Hannah Montana? Who's that chick?
Oh, Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, Miley Cyrus. That crazy woman. She wears like dildos and stuff like that. I was like, come on, dude.
Or even like Lena Dunham. I mean, it's like, I know she's not running for president, but she literally sexually molested her sister.
Yeah, and wrote about it in her books. Like, Jesus.
And writes about it, and it's disturbing. She wasn't like 3 years old when she's recounting the story. I mean, she's old enough to know that what she did was wrong, and she's never, as far as I've seen, apologized for it. And it's like, of course, they circle the wagons though when it's somebody on the left, so they all defend her No, it was her sister. I mean, my God, at least
Yeah,
Trump.
over intolerant. Yeah, like Salon or Slate, which one of those, probably both. They've been highlighting article writers that admit they're pedophiles. Hey, I'm a pedophile, but I'm not evil. I'm a pedophile, but I'm never whatever. And now they're like claiming people are pedophiles that aren't. You're just throwing this out like, oh, now it's bad. What are you doing, you crazy people?
Right.
And like I've got a friend, his son. I was debating earlier either this week or late last week on Facebook. He's like, oh, all offended by what Trump's saying. He's like, oh, you shouldn't say stuff like that. But it's like me and his dad have had lots and lots of conversations that have gotten fairly vulgar and beyond what Trump has said. No, not specifically like advocating rape or anything like that, but I'm saying like the language that's used and just whatever the jocular nature of the conversation, that's fairly common.
Well, and the other thing too, I mean, it's like whether people want to admit it or not, whether it's PC or not, I'm sorry, a lot of male celebrities that are charismatic, that are very good looking, or just emit a powerful vibe. I think people can admit that Trump kind of projects like bravado and confidence.
Alpha male.
A lot of guys can kind of get away with that have that aura. So whether you think it's right or wrong, you want to get into like consent. Did she say you could grab this and this and that? But it's like, I don't think that it's not true that, some women do let guys that kind of have that celebrity persona do those things. So it's like, I wasn't, you know what I mean? In a way, it's like, I wasn't shocked. Like,
yeah, I'll just say there's a lot of guys in power that they will have the ability to do things. Like, let's be honest, if you're like Eminem or Justin Bieber, depending upon where area you're at, and you get all these like groupies and people applying, to work for them and all these other people, these sort of stars can do things that the average guy, like me or anyone else can't ever dream of doing simply because of their status and how they're regarded by these people around them. So when you have a rich billionaire in New York, and let's be honest, New York City is not a conservative stronghold. There's a lot of people that sort of buy into this whole, line of thinking. So he's fairly consistent in terms of what he does. And there's a lot of people that live in that world and agree with it. And he surrounds himself with people that are like that. So it's different than like if you're looking at a guy that's, working in the Catholic Church or something like that.
right.
Yeah, it's kind of like Trump tapes. Donald Trump just say they let you do it, like, so it's like I highly doubt it was rape. It's kind of like he said, well, they let me do it. He specifically said they let me do it. It's like, well, I moved in on her like a bitch. He said, then I failed, so
Yeah.
I failed. So this leads me to believe the fact that he said he failed makes me think that he was trying to woo her or whatever, rejected him, and he just moved on,
Yeah, and I mean, it does sound like that he's a bit of a womanizer here and there, but as far as I know, he hasn't raped anyone. There's one lady that's got a court date for rape or something with him or something like that. But it's nothing like what went on with Bill Clinton, and the media was strongly protective of Bill Clinton then. So,
Right.
That's because WikiLeaks, after the media too, it's like you would see like Washington Post getting mentioned and New York Times getting mentioned, and I am still waiting to see CNN getting mentioned on WikiLeaks. I am just waiting.
There's been some people like I forget his name. There's been one or two people from CNN. Well, obviously Donna Brazile, she got implicated in essentially giving one or more questions to the Hillary camp, and stuff like that for town halls and stuff and Q&As and stuff like that. And let's be honest, we all know that there's more than that coming. Even if it's not exposed in an email, we all know that there's been collusion between, the Clinton News Network and MSHRC and all these other left-wing, companies and the DNC.
Yeah, well, there was even a thing in the email about the Univision owner, and Univision's huge, right? Like they have so many Hispanics that watch them. Yeah. And the owner, Haim, actually emailed Podesta and was like, oh, you know, we're kind of underreacting to the whole comment that Trump made about the Mexicans. Maybe we need to stand up more for the Latinos. We need to attack the Republicans more. We're not condemning them enough, you know. And it's like, obviously, as we were talking about earlier, where's the objectivity there, right? Like you're the head of a news network and you're giving advice to the Clinton campaign. It's like,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
there's no objectivity and it's total 100% media bias.
Yeah, in 2015, I think it was, CNN was the 7th largest donor to Hillary's campaign. Univision, they donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign. I don't know the percentage, but a lot of donations to her campaign or to the Clinton Foundation are from overseas. So it's kind of crazy the level of influence she has.
Yes, I mean, it makes me think of Sargon's newest video. I don't know, if you've seen it, but it was posted today, and you know, he was comparing the United States to the Roman Empire, and you know, talk about how that's the United States is an oligarchy now, and were you gonna say something, Nick?
I was gonna say, I haven't seen that video, but I know what he's referring to. I've been behind on a lot of my YouTube videos because I've been working extra hours. But yeah, it's obvious that things are going downhill for this country. I mean, we're $20 trillion in debt. We've reached a point where we're burning basically $1 trillion a year, and that's just our federal debt. We haven't had an actual year where a surplus has occurred since like the 1950s or 60s. Like literally, like the next year we spend less money than the previous year. An actual legitimate surplus has not occurred in decades, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. And honestly, there's a lot of neoconservatives left in the Republican Party that essentially control. They're still in power, and they still are willing to bend over backwards and cooperate with the Democrats, who are, by any stretch of the imagination, for big government. And so something has to be done.
Yeah, I agree. With the Sargon of Akkad, you know, he was like, this is how Roman was before it failed. You know, like first we went to a republic, and we were a republic. Well, the United States was a republic, and then it moved to an oligarchy, and they wanted to keep all the wealth to themselves. They didn't care about the cohesion empire, and it's kind of like, you know, America, it's kind of like an empire because, you know, at first it was 13 colonies, just 13 colonies, and then we just got more and more land. But it's kind of like we just have this one leader, when really, I mean, the United States is so big that different regions is almost like a different country. You know, you have who have their own little personality, they're a type of way, and then you go up north and they're a type of way, and then you just kind of go out west and they're a different type of way. So it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like different Southerners. It's kind of like, for example, me, Nick, your boy Pat's, what's the other one? Reaper, all of us Southerners, we're kind of like against unity.
Yeah, we're the counterculture
we look at
now.
And it's kind of like, this is a terrible, horrible idea. You know, men and women should stay in separate bathrooms. But then you have like vernaculars and shoe on head who are like from like, you know, New York and Massachusetts, and there are 4 like unisex bathrooms. And then I do think which region a person's from affects the way that they think. You know, it's like different sections, countries, kind of like almost like we're just multiple countries, you know, tied together for one country. It is almost like an empire, just like how the Romans had a lot of land, and they had the Holy Roman Empire, and eventually it's collapsed. You know, it's kind of like all of this wealth just in the hands of a few people, and it's kind of like more and more Americans are in poverty. I have read an article, and according to this article, 50% of Americans are in poverty, which is really bad. I mean, I could Google it right quick if you want, but it said 50 percent of Americans are in poverty, and it just seems like the rich keep getting richer, and it's kind of like when we bounced back from the recession, it seems like it was really the rich who from the recession, and not so much the middle class. And it's kind of a lot like, you know, it's kind of apparent that they don't care. Even WikiLeaks shows that they don't care. You know, it's kind of like Hillary Clinton. She's saying things like, you know, a basket full of deplorables, or you know how Bernie Sanders supporters are what's it, basement dwellers, and then how she's saying things like, you know,
Yeah,
how the voter populace are so stupid, you know.
yeah,
It's kind of like she talks down on people who vote, like, oh, so many of the voting populations are just stupid, because it's reaching the point where, you know, she's looking down on people who are voting. And it's because it's kind of like when you are lying to people constantly, there is no way you respect
well, that's essentially
to
how
constantly.
Obamacare got passed. There was a deliberate attempt to essentially mask what was going on. The language and all the legislation was vague, and there's so many pages and pages and pages of stuff, and apparently no one read it all, or few people read it all, and you know, except for the people that were actually writing the policy. You know, and that comes out later in like the Gruber tapes or whatever those things are called. And, you know, that's essentially how they rule. There's essentially what's called the liberal intelligentsia. And these are the people that essentially are the thought leaders. They're the ones that essentially rule the roost, and they're the ones that essentially dictate policy. And everyone else pretty much doesn't matter. They're just needed to clock in, vote, and basically clock out. That's all that they need from the populace. And so that's essentially what we're dealing with. We're dealing with an elite group of people who essentially run the media, they run, you know, a lot of things basically. And we have an uphill battle ahead basically.
Yeah, that's always how it is with the Democrats. It's interesting because I know Hillary, I don't know if it was in one of the WikiLeaks emails, but she, you know, basically said that her supporters are barely literate, you know, and it's like you're attacking your own supporters, but this is how they always treat the people who actually buy into their lies. Nick, like you were talking about the Gruber tapes, right? I mean, he basically was just like, yeah, we knew that the populace was dumb enough to actually believe the big lie that if Obamacare got passed, you'd be able to keep your doctor and your healthcare plan. They knew from the beginning that it wasn't true, but they just knew that if Obama said it enough times and it was repeated enough times by the media, that people would actually buy it. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of people did.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's no way you're going to respect people, you know, that you're lying to constantly. It's kind of like, oh man, you know, it's like, because many black people, my family included, many black people were happy to have presidents, and it's kind of like, yeah, you're gonna believe anything I say now because I'm black. You're gonna believe anything. You're gonna be eating that upon my head. There's no way you're gonna respect, you know, people who believe lies. It's kind of like that's probably also why Hillary Clinton was smiling when Trump was calling her out on her lies. It's kind of like, well, people are still going to be dumb enough to vote for me anyway, and people who are dumb enough to go to her defense anyway, because the media is heavily on her side, you know.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go for it.
you know, it's kind of like people are not going to respect you if you don't respect yourself. You got to respect yourself in order for people to respect you. You know, it's like, if you're like, you know what, you're lying again. We're tired. If, you know, if everybody was like, you know what, you're lying. We're tired of your making us angry. You know, it's kind of like if everybody just lets, you know, the media know and Hillary Clinton know, or, you know, it's like voting for Trump is a great way to do it. But, you know, or like, you know, to turn the TV off, like no longer support CNN. Let the network die. Like if you don't watch CNN, if you don't read CNN, eventually these networks will die. Like the Guardian. The Guardian is begging for money now. It's kind of like you just gotta boycott them, and I would think that would work.
It's
Yeah, we're
interesting. Oh,
go
go
for
ahead,
it.
Nick. No, Nick, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, media has been taking a pummeling with other alternative media like Netflix and YouTube and blogs and other things like that, really cutting into that space. People can get their information everywhere else but media, so it's getting bad for them. Go for it.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say, it's very interesting because YouTube obviously is owned by Google. They're trying so hard to shut down conservative channels. And obviously, you guys both have conservative channels. So I don't know if you know what PragerU is. They're basically a channel that
Yeah,
makes.
PragerU, yeah, from Dennis Prager. Yeah, I love their videos. I've watched a fair number of them. Yeah.
So maybe you know about this, Nick, but what happened was 21 of their videos recently got listed as restricted. And I know, when
Yeah.
you go on YouTube, that's usually for like really extreme, whether it's nudity, whether it's violence. And
Yeah.
all it was stuff like, is America really racist? Are cops really racist? We're more extreme in abortion than Europe. It was really interesting,
Yeah.
short videos. And they appealed it to YouTube, or they at least went to YouTube with like 17,000 signatures asking for the videos to be unrestricted. And YouTube is basically like, we pick what's restricted and we don't. So, that's what's scary. And they recently changed their policies, and I'm sure you guys know about this
Yeah.
too, to where if anything is controversial, you can't get ad money, and they decide what's controversial. So I think you guys know where that's going to go, right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna
Yeah,
be-
I've had five of my videos demonetized since the beginning of the year. And actually, what's weird is 2 of them have been alternating back and forth between monetized and demonetized in the last, like since I created them in the last, I don't know, month and a half. They've literally, some days I'll check on one or both are monetized and or demonetized or whatever. So yeah, it's really crazy what's going on.
Yeah, 'cause I just feel like they're trying to get rid of us because, a lot of people get on YouTube because they're trying to make money, and some people want to go on Patreon and eventually do it for a living.
Yeah.
You're not even going to give people that opportunity, and you're going to be arbitrary like that. There are some voices that are never actually probably going to be heard. Not everybody wants to do it for free. It's a lot of time, like you guys know, it's effort and stuff like that. So it's kind of scary to me because I feel like they're trying to silence us.
Yeah, they're certainly making it a little bit, they're basically de-incentivizing
Mhm.
people from talking about stuff like that. It's anything about terrorism, anything about Islam, Black Lives Matter, or anything like that. And a lot of it is
Yeah, that
keywords.
scares me though, because it's like, so something of mine can now be restricted just because it's conservative.
Yeah,
Like,
the most controversial topics out there are often the things that need to be talked about the most.
Mhm.
Talked about the most, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was that's what I like how Computing Forever, I think that's what his name is, and how he talked about let's move to minds.com or
Yeah.
Minds, VidMe, Daily Motion. There's these platforms out there. Let's stick together, stick together, just be a community, and move over there. And it's kind of like if somebody like Sargon, somebody's biggest Sargon Shonehead were to talk about, hey, like there's minds, and I have a drawing contest and video at minds.com, please check it out. And it's kind of like, the you gotta go to Minds to learn about the details of the drawing contest, but we're going to give the best drawer like a special gift, but you have to go to minds.com first to know more about it. I do think the fans would be incentivized to go to mice.com or VidMe or Daily Motions, especially if everybody sticks together.
Yeah, I have set up
Even more
I've set up an account on Vimeo and another one on, I forget, but I've set it on 2 different sites, and so I've started planning on basically uploading all copies of my video to those as well, if just to spread out the message. I've also created an account on Minds, and I'm going to create an account on Gab.ai, as far as social media, and I'll start using other options here. I'll sort of diversify from Twitter and YouTube, but I'm not sure to what extent that'll help, but I'm willing to try.
I think that makes sense. And like, you know, I made a video where I was kind of like upset, obviously, with the policy change. And some people were like, oh, why did you try Vimeo? And I have a Vimeo account. So like you said, Doug, I could maybe try to put my stuff on there. But I think some of the problems is obviously like YouTube is the second biggest website other than Google, I think, right? And it's like, I think there's something like thousands of videos uploaded a minute. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like you said, it's like we can try to do that, but it's like obviously the vast majority of people are on YouTube and that's how they find your videos. So it kind of remains to be seen if there's an alternative site that's not as like speech censoring or whatever you want to say that could maybe come up and maybe be the number 2 video site.
Yeah, it probably would be a number 2 video site because I mean I don't know if other people would start getting upset, you know, like
I know there's another site out there. I wish I can remember what it's called, but Linus from Linus Tech Tips and a few other tech YouTubers started making content over there. And what they would do is they would release their content like maybe 2 or 3 days in advance over there, and then they would also release it on YouTube, because what they were getting from the YouTube Partner Program was essentially too little money for their work. So they're trying to essentially make more money. I'll try to look that up.
I don't know if eventually if other people like makeup people and gaming eventually go to Minds, VidMe, you know, like there will probably be other groups, you know. Who knows if it would escalate.
Vessel. The name of the site is called Vessel. So that'd be something to look into for any YouTubers that want to make content elsewhere. If they don't want to use Vimeo, they might look into Vessel and see about either mirroring their content there or releasing exclusive content there or something like that.
Site that you guys are mentioning, Minds? Is it M-I? Are you saying M-I-N-E-S?
M-I-N-D, like mind power.
Okay, got it.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
The Minds.com is a bit confusing, you know. It's like I actually had to watch a YouTube video to give me a tutorial.
Yeah, I was a big. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I had to watch a YouTube video to give me a tutorial on how to like upload a video. You know, it's like I found Minds.com to be so confusing that, you know, this is going to sound strange, but I actually had a much easier time uploading videos to a Japanese website than I did at Minds.com.
That's not good.
Yeah, like I was a big believer in Google Plus as an alternative social media site, mainly because it wasn't limited to 140 characters. You could, you know, put really large files on there. You know, if you are into the Google and Android ecosystem, or if you just use like their photo website, whatever it's called, you could basically have, you know, unlimited image sizes, and it's linked with their YouTube channel, so you could put stuff like that. But then they sort of started backing off and they unlinked, you know, Google Plus and YouTube, and it's been noticeable that Google has been more draconian in terms of what they'll allow and what they won't allow. I don't know. So it's just got.
You know, I think I should mention this to the both of you. Like, well, I got both of you here. A great free speech website is livejournal.com. I don't know if you guys heard of it.
Oh yeah, that's a great site.
Yeah, it's better than Facebook. I like LiveJournal better than Facebook, and it's great because I mean, you know, it's kind of like even nationalists are welcome there. You know, even white nationalists have their own group. You know, but they'll just put it under adult content. You know, they'll just make it age restricted. But you could say anything you want there, like unlike Google Plus. You know, things are becoming more and more Orwellian. You know, it's kind of like Facebook has banned Lauren Southern for like 30 days for making a post, and I think that Twitter has banned 5 conservative Twitter users. It's kind of like, and Candid, harmful opinions has made a great series about how Candid, how terrible it is, how they are getting rid of the trolls and the bullies, which makes me think that the only why anti-feminists were invited was to train its computer on how to get rid of this. I do think that we're just there to train it to train their AI on how to get rid of us.
Well, also what they've been doing, like on Twitter, for example, they've been appealing to conservatives to get verified and stuff like that to try to appease them, because there have been a lot of conservatives basically saying, hey, I'm willing to leave Twitter if needed. And, Twitter's been having a lot of issues. Their stock has been getting really low. And if they start bleeding, like 10, 20, 30% of their users, that's not necessarily good for the company. So they're trying to counteract that. But the problem is they're still doing all this leftist stuff by essentially shadow banning people, censoring people, preventing people from posting something, even stuff that's fairly innocuous. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all the sites like you guys, you're just mentioning Facebook. I mean, there was the whole thing about how they were suppressing any kind of like conservative topics that legitimately should have been trending. Like it was being talked about the most on the website, or at least should have been number 5, and they weren't even, shoving it on the top 10. And I know most of my friends literally get their news from the Facebook trending topics, which is kind of scary because a lot of it's like about the Kardashians or something. But it's like, that kind of stuff matters. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like all across social media, unfortunately, for us conservatives who are trying to do stuff online.
Yeah, all this shadow banning of conservatives. This is why I tell both of you that livejournal.com is great when it comes to free speech. I highly doubt that anybody is going to get censored there. So if you don't have an account, it's great. And not only that, but I don't know if you noticed or not, but you could actually upload videos to your LiveJournal account. Did you know that?
I was on it like 13 years ago. So back then it was like a lot more of a basic site. So I wasn't aware that it was kind of like that nifty now, but I'll definitely check it out. And I can maybe create like, kind of like a political journal on there, because Tumblr is the worst. I had Tumblr just for like TV shows, and like I'd go on like a castle Tumblr and it would all be about political stuff and how much they hate conservatives. And I'm just like, forget this. Like I'm on here for graphics and I feel like I'm being attacked every day, like. So yeah, I'll check it out.
Oh, but you could upload videos to LiveJournal too. They do videos, but you have to pay if you want a long video. Like if it's a really long, you have to pay for LiveJournal Plus. But they would host a small video if you're a free user. I don't know if you're interested in that or not.
I'll look into it. I still have my old account. So I have an account on there now. Like it was mostly like journals and stuff like that, but I'll look into it. I basically want, alternatives to YouTube now, obviously, just kind of seeing the way they're going with things. I mean, I think the writing is kind of on the wall, and, we all work hard on our videos, and we don't want to come on. I have a video, with a couple of thousand views. I don't want to come on tomorrow and it's restricted,
Yeah. And what happens if they demonetize it is basically every view that was on it, you now no longer get credit for in terms of.
Wow.
It's all gone. It's not like you stop earning revenue on it. It's like all revenue that you would have earned is gone. So yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's what's distressing to have, like some of my videos just monetize one day, demonetize another day, monetize one day, demonetize another day. So it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I agree with computing forever, because have you heard that people are leaking subscribers, and how they are like just plummeting in subscribers, and it's kind of like YouTube is trying to just get rid of us. They really are just trying to silence us. Really don't want us there. And I do think they'll probably suffer, because the other half of the nation is Republican. It's kind of like again, it's a near 50-50
Yeah, by population, yeah.
Yeah, it is 29% Democrats, 26 Republicans. So it's pretty even. So if you like conservatives and trying to get rid of them,
Mhm.
not to mention there are conservative celebrities, you know, so it's kind of like you would just be just getting conservatives off your platform, you know.
Right. And it's like, how they say in business. I remember Michael Jordan said something to the effect of like, I don't care who buys my sneakers, Republican or Democrat, they're still buying my sneakers. And it's like at some point, like a view is a view. Like you think what YouTube cares about is getting eyes on their ads. And like you said, Ren, if they get rid of all of us, you're going to lose conservatives. Like that's less ad money for you. So you think at some point, like the business sense would kick in, but who knows?
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you because it's kind of like um well, actually anybody who has a wrong opinion, it seems like they're Sargon comes to think of it, he identifies as left libertarian, but it still seems like even left libertarian and people who identify as part of the left are still unwanted because of wrong things. So it's kind of like we should start people like Sargon and people who are really huge should start migrating their fan to Minds or VidMe or Daily Motion somewhere. Just, but I don't think it's going to be Minds because Minds the upload is too confusing. Many people find it too confusing, so I would think it would probably be VidMe or Daily Motion or Vimeo.
No, thanks for the links. Vimeo I have. I had never heard of Vessel or VidMe. So I'm definitely gonna check them out and create a channel. What can it hurt? Do you know what I mean? Kind of like Nick was saying, we have to diversify at this point because I just feel like 6 months from now I can come onto YouTube and my whole political playlist is restricted. And you don't want to be in the situation where you didn't put anything up anywhere else. You know what I mean? Even if I don't have as many people on these other sites because they're not as popular, it's better to at least have something. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because if people don't visit other websites now and don't tell their friends about it, now they would probably have to start over from scratch. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Absolutely. And it's also kind of like, we also, I think, need to take a stand against YouTube. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like what they're doing is wrong. Like, I understand to a point where they're a business and, the whole they can set their own rules. But I also think that rules need to be applied equally. And it's like when you're only doing this to conservative YouTubers, that's not right. And like Nick was saying, I mean, somebody or whatever, how we were discussing, somebody who maybe was doing this for a living, you're destroying their livelihood. If somebody had enough subscribers, I'm thinking like Julie Borowski. I don't know if you subscribe to her or not. She has a really funny channel, and I think she has about like 85,000 subscribers. I know she has a political job, but the point is somebody like that really could have had that as her full-time job. Like they could have quit corporate America, was they were before, and then to come on and they look and they're like, oh my gosh, 200 of my 300 videos are now restricted. It's like, wow, maybe they can't pay the rent that month. So it's a shame what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's like I'm not surprised because first of all, it's Google. That's what a lot of people said back to me kind of when I made my video and I was kind of venting about it. And also it's like this is how liberals are. Like we said before, like they just cannot stand to have an opposing ideology because what they believe does not stand up to scrutiny. So they've got to kind of silence us wherever they can. So
Yeah, computing forever's video, it was like really, really scary because he was talking about how even the search engine, the Google search engine where people tried to Google stuff, it was pushing down anything negative about Hillary
Mhm.
Clinton's health. Not only that, but it's just kind of like back when I was using hit the Google search engine, and I was asking when is the dates of the election.
Mhm.
Hillary Clinton's image popped up. Not
Um,
both of them. It was just only Hillary Clinton's image popped up. It's
right.
gone now. They changed it.
Right.
I guess because enough people complained about it. But
Right.
you could tell that Google itself is biased, which is why I've been trying to use Bing now.
Okay.
And Bing, I mean, I actually could find more things on Bing. And that's kind of scary, isn't it? Because for years we've been trusting Google, and Bing has like more stuff, there and the things that I'm looking for as well. So
Right, exactly. And that's kind of what I think we need to do as conservatives is at least try to move away from some of these progressive sites that are so into like censoring us, and like I said, I know it can be hard because it's like, okay, I have a couple of hundred subscribers. I know that's not a lot to some other people, but it's better than zero, right? So you're kind of going through
yeah,
some of the sites and you're like, oh, here we go again, I got to start over. But sometimes it's like it's delaying the inevitable because they're going to keep turning this up. This is just the beginning, and then
exactly.
yeah.
That's why Sargon of Akkad and people like Sean had all these big YouTubers. They need to start incentivizing their fans to use Daily Motion right now, as opposed to waiting until all of their videos are gone and they have to basically start from scratch of
Exactly.
their fans follow them on Twitter. So if they you know they're popular on Twitter, so sure they could have some of their fan base, but because only a fraction of their fans are on Twitter, that they would still have fewer subscribers than they originally have. Like right now, Sargon has like 417K subscribers, but
Okay.
um, but he has fewer followers on Twitter. So if his channel is just gone, if everything disappears one day,
Yeah.
it's kind of like he would really want his fans to know where he's at, how they could continue watching his video, just in case he's gotten rid of, because
Right.
they're trying to get rid of us. And it's also why I have a problem with the Amazing Gate is and Armored Skeptic coming to the defense of Candid, because Candid is kind of like they advertise itself as the anti-bullying, anti-trolling, and I don't know if you watch Harmful Opinions, but there's a post that says "kill all white people."
Oh my God.
Nothing happened to the "kill all white people" post. So he wrote "kill all black people," and that's the one that got removed. So "kill all white people" is a-okay. Kill
Right.
all black people is not. And I do think the anti-feminist community needs to be honest with itself, because it's like, come on, we're argumentative. Many people in the anti-feminist community built their channels by their fans are also argumentative. Uh, you're not going to like an app that shadow bans you while you're angry that Milo and Laura Sutter, you're angry when they get shadow banned. You're not going to like an app like Candid, not for long term.
Exactly, exactly. So, no, it's great. I thank you guys. Well, I know Nick's gone, but for giving me all those links. Some of them, like I said, I hadn't heard of, so I'll check it out. It's extra work, but like you said, it's worth it, right? You don't want to wake up 6 months from now and YouTube's like, "Oh, we've decided to get rid of all the conservative videos. That's our new policy." Like, it's sad, honestly. I just expect it to get worse, but yeah, no. This was definitely a cool conversation. You guys had a lot of very interesting, feedback from the debates, especially the Clinton Podesta emails, which were just crazy.
And yeah, we should also try to stick together as a community, because I mean, we are the community that cares about free speech, or many people in the community do care about free speech. We do need to just stick together, because it really would be hard starting all over in a different website. It really would be.
Definitely. And like you said, I think the channels with the most subscribers should be leading the charge. Like I only have 251 subscribers, and most people don't want to go to another site. They're like, well, I'm already following you on here. So you know what I mean? Why do I have to go to Vimeo and sign up as a user, blah, blah, blah. But if you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, you probably have like some hardcore fans who will be willing to kind of like, hey, I'll sign up. It only takes 30 seconds. I'll throw you a subscribe. And they can, like you said, kind of be the ones leading the charge, and then more of us can follow. And I mean, I'm hoping maybe one day there's like a site that's just conservative videos or something. I mean, I don't know. It's like I'm waiting for somebody to come up with that idea, because I feel like something's going to have to be run by a conservative person eventually. It's like so many of these sites are left leaning, like we're talking about on social media. It'll be interesting to see if maybe, I mean, not Rush Limbaugh necessarily, but just somebody who's maybe big in the conservative movement who decides to kind of create a conservative, social media video sharing network site, I think would be very interesting, because I think people would flock to it because, we can see what's happening on YouTube and like the writings on the wall.
Yeah, the way I view it, the way it would be successful, it's if big YouTubers like Sargon of Akkad were to incentivize his fans to go. Like if you have a contest, but only the people at Minds.com know about it, or VidMe or whatnot. If you have a contest going on and to win $1,000, but you have to sign up and start following him on Minds.com and whatnot.
Right.
If Sargon says you could win $1,000, so you got to follow me on Minds.com first. Think about how many people would join just to have the opportunity to win $1,000.
Oh, definitely. And I think you had mentioned like the makeup and the makeup and the hair, and like those channels are very popular on YouTube. They do that stuff all the time, even just on YouTube. I follow someone called Jasmine, and she has 890,000 subscribers, and she's always giving away stuff for like back to school or fashion haul from Wet Seal, makeup, hair products. And I've been following her for a long time before she kind of blew up like this, and it's definitely helped make her channel more popular. It's like, who doesn't want free stuff, right? So people will tune into the video and they'll do whatever she has to do, like share my video and whoever does this, blah blah blah. So yeah, I think those are the ones.
Yeah, I followed Philip DeFranco. I mean, I was a little bit late. It's like, darn, I'm late. But I followed Philip DeFranco just for the opportunity to
Right.
get a free, iPhone 7. Yeah, he was giving away an iPhone 7 a few weeks back. And I was like one day late. It's like, late. It's like, I followed him just for the chance to win them. So can you imagine if subscribe to me at vid.me, subscribe to me over there, and you would have a chance to win $1,000. Trust me, a bunch of people would flock over there just to have a chance to win money.
Well, what's funny is they did this before. I don't know if you recall livevideo.com, but it was supposed to be the big competitor to YouTube, and it was going to take over YouTube. And they actually went to all the biggest channels on YouTube at the time. So Smosh, they're still really big. And I can't remember everybody because it was about, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years ago, but they were like, hey, come over to live video. We're going to pay you more than YouTube's paying you. All we're asking is that you ask your subscribers to follow you to live video. And then, the site basically collapsed. Like it didn't work, right? Like not enough people went over, but they did the kind of stuff you were talking about. Like they went to their subscribers. They're like, hey, there's a new site. Come follow me over here. Da-da-da-da-da. We're doing a contest for people who actually sign up and subscribe. So yeah, I mean, it worked then. The site wasn't able to keep alive. I think that's what I was saying. Like YouTube is a really hard website to compete with. I mean, the number 2 site behind Google. But even if we can have a viable alternative, I think that's what's going to be interesting to see over the next year or so with all these changes and how much they're against conservatives now. I think people are really getting sick of the website. I mean, even people, who are subscribed to my channel are just it's getting to the point where I don't even want to go to YouTube to watch your videos because I'm so ticked off about, how anti-conservative they're getting at this point. It's just ridiculous, So,
Look, this is what I think. I would think that even some makeup channels would want to go, because just because a person doesn't mention that their political position doesn't mean political. A person could do a makeup channel but still be a Republican.
sure.
Yeah, who knows what makeup person is secretly following Sargon just to hear that Sargon's opinions is going to be censored because it's an anti-feminist.
Exactly. And like you were saying, there's even a lot of celebrities that are conservative. The Rock is conservative. I remember The Rock was at the Republican National Convention. I mean, I don't remember if it was 2012 or whatever year it was, but he was there. And, he kind of gave some kind of introduction or something. So it's almost like, how crazy is it going to get? I mean, he's literally the top paid male star right now. It's not, Tom Cruise. It's not even Will Smith. It's The Rock. Last year he was the top paid. So it's are you going to block him? Are you going to ban him? Are you going to delete his videos? It's just going so far at this point. So, so yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see kind of where it all goes. And oh god.
Yeah, because there are real celebrities like people like The Rock and yeah, I think LL Cool J and 50 Cent are also Republicans. So there are movie stars and rappers who are Republican, and it's getting pretty late. So do you just want to give some final words?
Yeah, this was, like I said, it was a great discussion. First time being on with you guys, so I'll be happy to come back whenever you guys want to have me. For anyone who watched the live feed, thanks for watching. Let us know your thoughts. And yeah, we'll definitely talk to you guys later.
Yeah, I am thinking of doing another hangout of the next debates. The next debates will be on the 19th, and I was thinking of doing the last having the final presidential debate. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, just let me know. I'll be back on. It should be interesting, that's for sure. So
Yeah, and if you know an extra person that wants to come on, you're welcome to invite them. And I'll ask Nick if he has any friends that want to come on. A friend, but it's like the biggest rule: you have to watch the whole entire debate from beginning to end. That's the way we could have a real discussion about it. As watch it at all.
all right, definitely. I'll ask around kind of on Facebook and Twitter. And yeah, well, Ren, listen, have a good night. Enjoy your weekend. And I'm sure I'll see you on Twitter.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.